For some reason, this is what
All right, welcome everyone to Administrator Issues and Updates on December 9th, 2025. County Administrator Gary Schmidt, would you please call the roll?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Commissioner West is out of the office today. Roll call online. Commissioner Schrader.
here.
In the room, Commissioner Savas.
Present.
Commissioner Helm.
Here.
Chair Roberts.
Here. Thank you, Gary. Would you introduce the first agenda item?
Yes,
for us?
I'm adding a topic that's not on your list, and that is a weather update on the intense rains and winds we're having in our area. Daniel Neibauer, Director of Disaster Management, will give a quick update. Go ahead, please, Daniel.
Good morning, Commissioners. A couple quick updates on current impacts. We've got flooding around the Mount Scott Creek area near Rusk Road and Lake Road. Rusk Road is closed from 224 to Lake Road. Telford Road is closed and boring by Rugg Road. There is flooding on or near Jennings Avenue around the Boardman Wetlands National Park. Sewage overflows have been reported to the state on the Willamette River and Clackamas River in Oregon City and Estacada. The Johnson Creek and Pudding River are in minor flood stages. The Sandy River and the Clackamas at Estacada is at an action stage, which we're not going to likely see flooding there, but there's just some actions we take there. We're not seeing that action stage further down the Clackamas in towards Oregon City, just at Estacada. Forecast-wise, last night was the most intense. We were getting some pretty heavy rains there for quite some bit. We will see some heavier rains for the next 12 hours, probably get another 3/4 to an inch. That will not, won't really make the waters rise much higher, but it will keep the water levels to where they at. 12 hours after that, the storm is going to shift north. We'll see probably another 1/4 to 1/2 inch, but we do anticipate a lot of the water levels to be going down at that point. Up north, it is going to get fairly significant. Further north you get, up in Seattle area will be pretty bad as well. Wind levels, we will see those decrease, so that's nowhere near the risk we had. If there's a gust, we may still see some trees go down, mostly due to the soil saturation. Makes it very easy for trees to go over. As the National Weather Service is out, we'll be drying out until at least through the weekend, although we will still see little bits of rain. Also to note, river levels can be monitored at the National Weather Service National Water Prediction Service. Is a map of the United States, and you can zoom in on just about any area. It will show you the current river or stream level, and you can also see the forecasted level where they anticipate it going, and it will show constant observations as well as the forecast, and we'll adjust to those. But that is a National Weather Service provides that, and they pulling in data from all over to get that that information.
Yeah. You.
Just that
Okay, sorry.
noise was distracting.
The first thing I want to say, just thank you for being here. And I wanted you to touch on, because I thought there were supposed to be some high winds today, but you're saying that's changed a little bit, or was that, help me understand that?
Yeah, they're seeing the wind level decrease, so we're not looking at the wind levels we were seeing last night and the gusts we were seeing last night. Certainly still can be some gust out there, and there's still certainly risk of trees going down and power outages due to those, but that's going to be more to soil saturation than it will be to high winds.
Okay. And then following up on another point you made, it doesn't sound like waters have crested. Is that what I understand? Or
Likely to be crested through the day.
Through the day.
It should be right about now, but probably within the next couple hours we'll see that crest, but they will be maintained for a little bit. We see them crest and come down, but given the rainfall, we'll do that. And I mean that's what we're looking at. If the storm moves or stalls. Fortunately, the storm did not stall over us yesterday. It kind of just moved its way on, so it'll come back, but then head north.
Great. It was very wet. And I know there's these different pockets throughout the county, whether it's along the Pudding River or out near Shady Dell. So if folks need sandbags, because I've been told some folks are doing sandbags. Andrew, you've come up with a list, is that correct, about where they can get sand? Could you talk about that, Andrew?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Folks are encouraged to visit clackamas.us/D as in dog, M as in Mary, /sandbags. And this website has a location of sandbag locations. There are county-sponsored sites listed here, as well as city sites for residents of the city. And again, that website is clackamas.us/DM/sandbags. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We are in touch with the county-sponsored sites. that we work in conjunction with those cities. And one of them has actually asked for sand, so we're getting more sand to those, and we're making sure that there's sand and sandbags available at all those sites.
Fantastic. All right, any other questions? So I'll put this on the agenda for our business meeting on December 11th for,
That's the
we're
next
not going
That's
to.
the next topic.
Oh, okay. All right, well then I'll turn to Gary and, any other comments?
Great. Thank
Then
you,
we'll move
Daniel. And
on.
Daniel will continue to update you via email, and if things progress, you'll inform the board and me right away. Thank you. All right, so Daniel's still here. We're back to the agenda now. The next two topics are proposed consent agenda items, and as always, because these are either new or a significant dollar amount, we're bringing this to you first at issues to make sure you're comfortable before it goes to the consent agenda. First item is for disaster management, approval of a personal services contract with Tetra Tech to provide disaster debris management services. Contract value is approximately $1 million, contingent on disaster damage, and 5 years. Funding is through county general funds with at least 75% reimbursement from the Federal Emergency Management Agency. Daniel, go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, this contract is basically an on-call contract for post-disaster, and this particularly a large disaster, most likely one in which we would receive a major disaster declaration from the president, in which case we could call on, in this case, it's disaster debris monitoring, which means it's a firm that will come and watch the contractors that are doing the disaster debris removal, which is a requirement by FEMA to get reimbursement from FEMA on that. So if we were to have a large disaster, I would come to you and brief you on the disaster, brief you on the damage, and say that we would like to issue a task order to this firm to provide these services for us and be removing disaster debris. No, well, they wouldn't remove it. They would watch those that are removing the debris. We've had this contract for the past 5 years, and this renews it. We are, I believe, still the only county in Oregon that has this contract, as well as a disaster debris removal contract, and it allows us to get pretty much immediately operational post-disaster to get roads cleared and debris removed. It also allows us to negotiate these rates during blue sky events and not have to get this contract in place post-incident.
Yes, Paul.
Just a question, that part of the general fund you spoke to, that percentage, Gary, is there a set aside for that matches this? Or is this literally not baked into the forecast?
Great question. Do you budget for this in your department? I don't think you do you?
No, we do not budget particularly of this amount. This and these would be very large disasters. We did use it for the wildfire for a very small amount, but we're typically going to be looking at a very significant flood, an earthquake, a huge wildfire. But we do not budget for the amount that would be on here to be waiting as a match for that. And this would all be the FEMA part is a reimbursement as well. So we would spend and then get that money back from FEMA.
So, okay, thank you for that. So Gary, then essentially, that's contingency, that's tapped.
It would come from county contingency. The hope is that the feds would reimburse 75%, which is great, but that would not be immediately. So yes, we take it from contingency and then replenish it.
Okay, and this just struck another memory here. I remember my first business meeting 15 years ago in January of 2011 when was a zigzag, I believe. We knocked out that bridge. Forgot the name of that bridge, you probably remember. Are we monitoring any kind of debris in the river right now in the zigzags? I know that like if a root ball or something happens, then suddenly the ricochet off that water eats away at the sandy shore on the other side, and all hell breaks loose. So are we monitoring that? Who monitors that?
Sure. So we've been in touch with for the current weather. We're in touch with the Hoodland Fire District, and they've got folks out looking at those. We also have a very active community up there that has been sending us some reports and pictures. We did just recently install 3 gauges on Zigzag Salmon and another one on the Sandy. We're linking those. You can't see those right now. We're still trying to making them talk to the National Weather Service is difficult, but we are monitoring those. So we are looking for debris in Woodard Heights up there.
And as much rain as we had, and I think the confusion has been, Daniel knows this, is that it's not so much that it floods, it's so much that the erosion, the quick erosion because of the soil or the sand up there, and it can just, within a matter of hours, you can lose 100, 200 feet of shore.
We are monitoring for channel migration.
Thank you.
All right, so if there's no other questions, this, Crick, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you. Sorry, go ahead.
I think you answered part of my question. It's called the Sandy River for a reason, right?
And the zigzag for a reason too.
Yeah, I have a friend that has a house in the Sandy, and it's literally his deck over, yeah, it's going away. I don't know, I don't think I could live there. I think you partially answered my question. How much have we used this contingency in the past? You said you used it in 20,
So we use it for the, this contract for debris monitor. So in the, sorry, brain stopped there for a second. In the 2020 wildfires, the state did the disaster debris removal of the trees for us. They paid for all that. That was great. We used the monitoring contract to get a local representative to advocate for our community members to make sure that they signed the right documents. The state contractors are coming through very quickly. And so we basically established a community liaison, and that individual would go out, talk with the homeowners, make sure that they were aware of the service to help get damaged trees out of the right of way. The state was offering some private property debris removal, so it was going on and helping them assess their trees and making sure that all the documents were signed so that they could advocate as much as that. So that's how we used this in the past. I do not recall the full dollar amount that was there. I'd have to look that up, but we have used it. And this would, if we were to have a disaster, need to remove debris, we need to do monitoring to get reimbursed for the removal. And we do get reimbursed for the monitoring portion as well. It's a requirement by FEMA.
okay, and second part of the question is, just because I hear rumblings, do we know if the 75% FEMA reimbursement is a for sure thing?
No, we don't know anymore. I will say sometimes it is higher, but it's depending on how quick you can remove the debris. However, they are still figuring out what's going on FEMA. I believe in 2 days, the next FEMA, I believe they call it FEMA Review Council, is meeting and with their draft report. So we're very interested, but we have not heard many inklings on what that is or what it means for any of that.
So we're banking on the 75% reimbursement, basically. Otherwise, we would be tapping into general funds up to $1 million, potentially.
Certainly, and this contract is on call only, so there's no obligation in this. There would have to be a task order issued to them, and so we could, of course, at any time, just even if we had a disaster, say we're not going to use these services, and we would not issue them a task order to do so. This provides us the capability on established rates to go forward.
All right, thank you, Daniel.
One question I had on that, since you brought up some really good points, is would there be any way to get, if the state was declared an emergency, that could be used towards this?
Potentially, state funds could be used for it. They cannot use any other federal funds. So there's the potential, and different funding sources are tried to be found for different disasters, but typically, no, it looks to the responsibility of the local jurisdiction.
Okay, thank you. All right, are we ready then? That
I have a comment, please, Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
So the 2021 cost, my memory was, it was not very much, and that you actually covered it from your own department budget, because you had the resources.
Yeah.
But we'll confirm that. So this is a risk, Commissioners. That's why you notice in the title, it doesn't say budgeted.
Yes.
These are not budgeted
Yes.
county general funds. It's only if needed. We hopefully won't need it in 5 years, but if we do need it, there is a risk that the federal government will give nothing to us, in which case it will be taken from contingency. This is a really tough time for our budget, as you know, and who else will do this? No one will do this. So that's why it's here before you at issues. This is a tough one, Commissioners. Yeah.
Right, so it looks like we'll have it on our business meeting on December 11th, correct?
Yes, this Thursday. So think about it. You can have a chance to have a discussion on Thursday if you wish. Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Schrader has her hand raised.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just raised it, colleagues. One of the things I want to mention is having survived the great flood on a 60-acre farm that basically covered the entire lower acreage of our place at the time. I understand the risk here, and I guess we need the time to think about it. But quite frankly, I don't see any other way. I think we have to do it one way or the other. I know that we'll have a continued conversation about this, however, but I've seen what can happen firsthand. As Diane, as you mentioned, you have a friend whose property is in danger, and I've lived through the whole debris management and essentially watched all the irrigation paraphernalia that you need in order to farm be washed away down the Willamette River. So,
Wow.
thank you.
Thank you, Martha.
Yeah.
Anything else? All right, so we'll go ahead and move on to our next item. Yeah. next
Thank you,
item.
Daniel.
Thank you,
So
thank
this-
you, Daniel.
This will be on this Thursday's business meeting agenda for your action at that time. Thank you. Again, the next one is also a request for consent agenda, but it's unique enough, we want to seek your input first. This is for Health, Housing, Human Services, approval of a personal services contract with Transcending Hope for temporary and transitional behavioral health, housing operations, and supportive services. Contract value is $1,005,751.92 for 18 months. Funding is through the Oregon Health Authority. No county general funds are involved. Mary Rumbaugh, Director of Health, Housing, and Human Services. Go ahead.
Good morning, Chair, Commissioners. So this is funding that we actually received in 2022 through House Bill 5202. At the time, we did a solicitation and had two providers respond to that solicitation, and we're moving forward on contracting with both. The first contractor, Transcending Hope, already had a house ready to purchase, and so they have been underway. And it's important to note that the priority population is aid and assist. So what happened then was that the second provider was struggling to find a location that was really going to be, they had more of a hotel model, and we were struggling to find a location that really the cities would be of support. And so earlier this year, they rescinded their award, which allowed us to then, just because we were sitting on money and unable to proceed. So they rescinded, they gave us back the award. And at the same time, Transcending Hope, through some other funding through Measure 110, had already purchased 2 additional properties here in Clackamas County, and procurement allowed us, under procurement law, we were able to then go ahead and just expand the award to Transcending Hope. So I'm here in front of you today to seek that approval to move forward with actually funding the 2 homes for operations. They're already owned, and they were purchased and owned by Transcending Hope. So this would be an operations-only budget for them. 2 homes, one in Milwaukee, or they're both in Milwaukee, one on Hillside Drive and one on Thiessen Road. This will serve up to 12 clients, 5 at the Hillside location and 7 at Thiessen. So it really addresses some of our challenges we've been talking about regarding the aid and assist population, those who are stepping out of the state hospital, or those who are going into community restoration, and they actually need some of that recovery type housing. So this is actually really a win for us, and we get to draw down these dollars that we've actually had since 2022.
Right. Any comments from colleagues?
No, just for the record, Thiessen Road is in unincorporated. A lot of people think it's Milwaukee, but it's not exactly the city of Milwaukee. That's my only comment.
Thank you.
Anything? Right. If there's no other questions, this also will be put on the December 11th for final approval. I see no other questions. Thank you, Mary. That's very exciting.
It
Very
is.
exciting.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Next, Continuum of Care Review Panel Board Representative. Mary will also present this, and joining her is Vahid Brown, Division Deputy Director for Housing and Community Services. Go ahead, please.
Close. It worked. Thank you again. So Vahid Brown, our Deputy Director with Housing and Community Development Division, is joining me. So there is a memo in your packet. We were planning on coming today, just seeking an update to you around some changes with the Continuum of Care funding that had just been released by HUD, and some new requirements around including elected officials on the local review panels. But there is some hot off the press updates that we need to actually share with you that came down yesterday from HUD. So I'll turn it over to Vahid.
Thank you, Mary, Chair, Commissioners. So yes, yesterday, the Housing and Urban Development Department issued a retraction, a withdrawal of the Notice of Funding Opportunity for the Continuum of Care Program for 2025. They indicated that they are going to, they're seeking the opportunity to make appropriate changes, I think was the language. This was in the midst of a hearing and in front of a federal judge in Rhode Island. There's a lawsuit that's pending against the department by the National Alliance to End Homelessness. There will be a hearing on the lawsuit on December 19th. So we will not have any further developments on the Continuum of Care program until December 19th. Continuum of Care, of course, is a source of federal funding for homelessness response programming in Clackamas County. We typically have received around $7 million in programming. Amongst the changes that were instituted were some new requirements for the board that would be assembled to rank and score the local projects and then submit a project application to HUD. So this morning I was going to ask one of you, we were going to ask one of you to support that request by serving on that board. County Administrator Gary Schmidt also relayed our request to cities in the county to identify us to city representatives to help meet that requirement of 3 elected officials. So since the COC NOFO was withdrawn, we have paused our preparations for an application under the new requirements. The new requirements were vastly different than we've historically seen from COC. So we were having to put together a very different set of programs to apply for funding than we would normally do. So we made quite actually excellent progress towards that, to meet those needs and to meet the new requirements. But we don't know whether those new requirements will continue to exist when the NOFO is reissued. We don't know. So we'll have to wait until the 19th.
But I still suggest you pick a board rep today, so we're ready to go,
Great.
please.
That's great. Thank you.
And I know, go ahead, Diana.
Fahid, can you give me a little context on the lawsuit, please, in Rhode Island? And what's it about? Just give me some context, please.
So, and the lawsuit brought by the National Alliance to End Homelessness is one of many lawsuits that are pending against the various departments of the federal government and representatives of the federal government related to this NOFO and executive orders and how the president's executive orders are affecting departmental funding opportunities, including the HUD COC NOFO. There are so there's a lot of requirements and language in the NOFO related to those executive orders. Every one of those executive orders has triggered lawsuits. They have to do with how the implementation of the executive orders in the NOFO are in violation of other existing statutes, including VAWA, the Violence Against Women Act, the Americans with Disabilities Act, and anti-discrimination federal law. The NOFO is discriminatory. Well, I suppose that's an editorial. There are lawsuits that are that hold that the NOFO it violates anti-discrimination law. The NOFO renders ineligible for programs people who are disabled by virtue of a certain type of disability, a SUDS disability. That's contrary to the Americans with Disabilities Act. There are provisions related to the provision of victim services that are in violation, according to the contenders of the lawsuits, of the Violence Against Women Act. So there are many contentious issues at stake, as well as the fact that only 30% of the funds, according to the NOFO that was issued and since retracted, were allowed by HUD to be dedicated to housing programs. Communities across the United States use the majority of COC funding for housing programs. It's a homelessness response funding source. And so an estimate from the National Alliance is that about 150,000 currently served people in the United States would lose their housing simply by virtue of the change in that percentage by saying that only 30% could be dedicated to housing programs.
Okay, thank you very much.
Go ahead, Paul.
So my question, you mentioned 7 million. Was that annually or was that collectively?
Yeah, annually for annually that was distributed to Clackamas County and its applicant partners. Not all the money flows through Clackamas County. About $2 million comes to the county to support COC planning, the HMIS system, and the Coordinated Housing Access Program. And the rest of it is in direct contracts. A number of them are to the Social Services Division of H3S. That's the lion's share. And then others are to community-based organizations in direct funding contracts.
So do we oversee all of those?
Yes.
The entire $7 million, we're responsible for oversight?
That's right.
essentially? Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Hill.
Are we allowed to nominate someone who's not here today? Who's maybe vacationing in Cabo?
You could. Commissioner Schrader has her hand raised.
Oh, sorry.
Commissioner Schrader, go ahead.
Commissioner Schrader, I believe you're muted. Commissioner Schrader, you're still unmuted. There you are.
There we go. I usually, when I raise my hand, I was hopeful you can help unmute me. That would be great. Okay. I just wanted to say, Diana, you took the words right out of my mouth. I really think this is in Ben's wheelhouse. You know, and I guess it's always a little dangerous to be on vacation when an appointment comes up. But and I'm glad he's having a great time, and he will come back rested and ready to take on this position. But that would be my my suggestion. And I guess, do we wait until he comes back, or just do it and let him know?
Do it now, please. Do it
Let's
today.
do it now. Let's do it now. Okay.
I don't think he would disapprove.
Oh, I don't think so either. So I'm going to move that we appoint Ben to this position. It's in his wheelhouse, and he'll do a great job.
Second.
All right.
All right. Excuse me. Commissioner Schrader has moved to appoint Commissioner Ben West to the 2025 County Ranking Review Panel and direct staff to work with city partners to fill the two other positions. Commissioner Salvis has seconded that motion. Any further discussion? I will ask the clerk to call the poll for us.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Commissioner Savis,
Aye.
Commissioner Helm,
Aye.
Mr. Chair.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. All right. Anything else
you.
before we move
No,
on?
thank you, Marion Vahid. Thank you. Next topic, Carver Park Boat Launch Renaming Request. Dan Johnson, Director of Transportation and Development, will present.
Good morning, Chair Roberts, Commissioners. We are here to revisit a discussion we had back in 2023, which is a request from the citizen of the public to possibly rename the Carver Boat Ramp. And a couple things I want to highlight. Essentially, our Parks Department doesn't own this particular ramp. It is a ramp that is owned by the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife. We have an agreement to help manage it and operate it. Just want to clarify that, so in regards to the asset. The direction we got from the board the last time we updated them was to go have a dialogue with a couple of specific entities. One was the Parks Advisory Board, and the second was the Committee for Community Involvement regarding this particular request, kind of to vet the request. Interestingly enough, that discussion really didn't result in an answer to the question around the particular request. It resulted in a, hey, you should really revisit your naming policy you have for county facilities. And that's kind of the recommendation that came back. And I believe that it is in process right now. Facilities, with the help of Elizabeth Comfort and Finance, they are looking at the possibility of bringing back before this board a discussion around some of the revisions recommended for the naming policy. But we were asked to bring this particular request forward for consideration at this point in time. I will tell you there are a couple of different options that are available to you, and those are pretty clearly defined in the staff report. One is to decline the current naming request. The second is to decline the current naming request and direct staff to update the policy to include renaming considerations, et cetera. And last is to approve the request, and we move forward and advance that. It's an interesting position to be up here talking about the naming request when we have direction from some interested citizens to revisit the naming policy. So I guess our recommendation to you right now, a respectful recommendation, is option one, to basically deny the current naming request and allow that dialogue around the policy revisions to come forward for consideration. And if there is still interest after that point in time, we can revisit it if the board has interest in that. But I can't really sit here and speak from a position of an educated position on a recommendation based off all the concerns that are out there regarding the current policy that we have. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Commissioner Helm, go ahead.
Paul was actually first.
So Gary's has his card up. I know he's probably going to speak to the processes of the renaming policy renaming policy in and of itself, which has got some history. And every time something, I would say, kind of significant comes up when it comes to renaming, a lot of opinions come out, right? And not from me, but I've been in a few where people sometimes take offense that we're going to name it after some person, regardless of their stature, and or why we're not going to name it after a Native American, whatever, or get Native input from Native Americans as to that. So there's that school of thought out there, and the other thing probably that I will say on something like this, if it does come up where we consider renaming anything, I would like to get to the history of how it got the name in the first place, right? So I would like to maybe reach out to some historian as to what is the history of how Carver Park got its name or whatever that facility may be. And also think about having far more community involvement than us just, renaming it out of, a simple request. There's just probably a lot of emotion and passion that'll come out. I don't know the history, but I'm sure those people will come out of the woodwork.
Commissioner, anything else, Paul? Commissioner Helm.
And I agree that number one, do we have that? Apparently, we do have that authority. If we had a policy in place, would the ODFW, do they have any problem with us renaming it?
They were approached originally and basically deferred to us the request.
Okay. I do think we need to have a policy in place, but I think that there should be more than one application for the process so that it opens it up to other folks. I mean, I don't know what channel it was, Grant McCombie or somebody on one of our local channels before he retired was always out on the river. So I just think it should be open to more people, more applications and stuff so that it's a more fair process.
Okay, thank you. Gary?
So I'll give you a process update, and then Commissioner Schrader also has her hand raised. So you did have an existing policy that was very weak, and your Parks Advisory Board and your Committee for Community Involvement both recommended beefing up the policy. They both gave feedback, some of it conflicting. Staff has been working on this for quite a while, longer than I'd hoped, but it's very sensitive, so we want to make sure we're doing it right. Department directors have given feedback. All to say is this will be before you in January, so just another month from now, to formalize an updated policy that encompasses all the things you said, Commissioner Savas and others, that you're getting all community feedback, you're considering prior history, you're involving appropriate communities to give you feedback before you make the ultimate decision, and it's always your decision as a board which you wish to make. So that's a process update, and then Commissioner Schrader has her hand raised.
Commissioner Schrader, go ahead.
Commissioner Schrader, you're muted, and just to know, Commissioner Schrader, I'm afraid I'm unable to unilaterally unmute you, so I will need your help to unmute.
I did.
Thank
Yay.
you. We can hear you.
I figured it out. It's a miracle. In any case, I'm probably going to be the only outlier in this conversation. Riss Bradshaw, who was one of our former sheriffs, and I believe Chair Roberts, I think the folks came to see you too, have been longtime advocates of renaming this. And let me point out, this is not a park. It's a boat ramp. And I honest to goodness think we're absolutely overthinking this, and that having a whole policy review for naming a boat ramp doesn't seem to make sense to me, particularly when we're facing so many really other significant issues. I think we just ought to let the folks who have come forward with it They contacted me back in 2024. Before them, I believe they've just talked with Chair Roberts. I'm willing to go ahead and just name the boat ramp at this point in time, but it sounds like I might be in the minority. But I honestly think we're overthinking this one. So that's just my two bits. I'd be willing to name it now. I believe they want to name it after Bob Tallman, who was someone who spent a lot of time fishing on that river with, again, past Sheriff Russ Bradshaw. And I know that there's a few other people. I don't remember their names at the time. But that's just my two bits. If I'm in the minority, so be it. But I really wanted to put that out there. I mean, we can over policy everything, guys. And I think this is one of those instances. So anyway.
Thank you, Martha. Go ahead.
Yeah, just one thing I want to add, if we go through this process, I'm still going to be process oriented on this. But I also like to get an estimated cost, because I know that signage and all the ancillary costs to rename something is significant. But I would encourage people, I just looked online, and I'm not saying this is conclusive or complete, but there's actually quite a bit of stuff about Carver Park here. So it's not just a boat ramp, unless something online's wrong. So I'll just say there, I think some homework needs to be done.
Well, thank you, Commissioner, for pointing that out. But like I said, we're not renaming. I'm going to disagree a little bit because of the folks that I know that have brought this forward, I guess. I still will say we're not renaming the park. It's a boat ramp in the park. And I'll be glad to work with you and get any research that we need to have to move this forward. But in the end, I hope that we can rename it based on the input we've already had. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
So just a comment I have, and I've had some experience on building naming, and it is, it needs some upgrades, the process. And so it is, from my perspective, kind of the building naming has kind of been going on for years with some challenges in a number of areas. So my goal is always to kind of make it more streamlined and better. I know this, I mean, if I was a citizen on this has been going on for years. So I really agree with Martha. I know this was brought forward a long time ago, and that I think we're probably perhaps overthinking this one a little bit, because it really, I agree with Martha, it is a boat ramp. And it's, to me, a small recognition for somebody who really took thousands of people up and down that river, educating them about the nuances about what a beautiful river Clackamas is. And so I guess I'm not trying to overthink it. As far as agreeing with you on the cost, I mean, I envision the sign shop or something making a sign. I don't see this as an expensive brass memorial type recognition. So I do agree. I think we need to do two things. My suggestion would be I would like us to see us move forward with naming just the boat ramp with the sign recognition, but also really taking a hard look at our policies and procedures on naming. And I think that will probably take some more time. So that's kind of where I land. Go ahead, Paul.
John, I'm just blipping along online here. So it was named in 1928, and it's 12 acres, so it's not a 12-acre boat ramp. So just clarification, are we talking about leaving the name Carver Park and just changing the name of the boat ramp?
Yes.
Is that
Yeah,
it?
this is
Yes. Just the boat launch.
ramp,
Okay.
not the park.
Yes, not the park. No.
No, nothing to do with the parks.
No, not the park. It's just something because Bob Tolman was such a force in the county, and as I said, I have a lot of respect for Russ Bradshaw and his compatriots, and so when they brought it forward, this is kind of the second iteration. And I think that Craig and I or Chair Roberts and I are landing on the same spot. It's not that I don't think we should go through a process, but of reviewing what our naming policies is. I think that's a good thing to do. I'm just not convinced that we should let this hold up naming a boat ramp, really. So I don't know, Gary, what's the, do we really want, do we want to have a motion now? Or do we just want to spend more time talking about it? It's up to you guys.
May I?
Yeah, Martha, if, one moment,
Yeah.
please, because Commissioner Helm wanted to make a comment.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner.
No,
Hellman.
no, 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 it's all right. Martha, thank you. Thank you for the history lesson too, because again,
Yeah.
I was not aware how far back this went. And the fact that it is not renaming the park, it is just, from what I understand, we're putting up a sign that just says Bob Toman Boat Launch,
Boat
right?
ramp.
Right? It's that simple? But Dan's giving me the stink eye.
No, 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 no. I've got to work on my.
Yeah.
No, hey, it'd be great. If the board has direction about rename, I'm telling you, I don't know who Bob Tillman is.
Oh, I've heard the name
I've
many times.
Heard the name
and-
since 2023, and
Yeah.
so if you are aware of who this individual is, and you have interest in simply putting a plaque up on the Carver ramp, on the boat ramp, not renaming the park,
Not
it is a park.
Right,
It is a park that has a boat ramp on it.
right.
And if it's as simple in the board's concept of just renaming that ramp and acknowledging him, and you can affirm him, that we'll put a little sign up there and call it good.
I'm good with that.
I am too. I'm sorry, am I unmuted and I'm talking out of turn? I apologize. Dan, I just want to thank you. I rarely disagree with you, Dan, but I think this is real doable. So,
All right, I have
Paul has
two
something.
comments. I have Paul first and then Gary.
yeah.
Thank you, Martha.
All right, thank you.
Well, I appreciate a little bit more clarity. I do want to just say, I just want to give us a little bit of space. I mean, if it's not that big of a deal, great. It's a couple of weeks or a few weeks to do some homework. I don't want to make a huge process out of this, but I just want to be informed. And my guess is that this policy session will solicit other input, and if there's none, great. If there's a lot, then I think that we can learn from that. But I appreciate the clarity, but again, I just want to make sure we've done our homework.
Okay.
Thank you, Paul. Gary?
With all respect, your Parks Advisory Board reviewed naming this Bob Toman, and they said no, because they didn't know who he was. And they were concerned, I don't want to put any words in the mouth of the Parks Advisory Committee, but they said no, because they felt, who is this person? And are you going to name things out of people that haven't been vetted? So I just want you to be aware of that history. I don't know who he is either, but certainly rely on the commissioners who do know him. You're right, we're making a big deal out of a small
Yeah.
thing. But the policy is not about boats or parks, it's everything you name, and ultimately, you make the decision. So it's totally your call. Thank you.
You know, I might make a suggestion, Martha.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that, I think it would be beneficial to step back and just ask exactly, get a little more history on Bob, perhaps exactly what the verbiage would be on this naming. It might be in memory of or something, and perhaps former Sheriff Bradshaw can draft that up and then help educate all of us on Bob and the things that he has done. And I might ask that they submit a letter kind of articulating that. And then I would just ask that we expedite this, Gary, and get this back on the agenda as quickly as we can, just that, because I like I said, sitting in their position, they probably are frustrated because it's gone on so many years. So what I would like to do is kind of a little bit of what Paul said, Martha, and we push to have that. What are your thoughts about that, Martha?
I think that's a great idea. And I would suggest that we get a hold of Sheriff Bradshaw and his compatriots And perhaps that we get a hold of the Parks Advisory Board so they can get some more background on this, because I think that'll smooth things and move it along. I can understand why the Parks Advisory Board, because they don't have the history, would have voted no. But I feel pretty confident that once, if they can get the history directly from the people that know it and why this is such a big deal for them, I suspect that they would absolutely go at, be in favor of this. I think we need to pull that kind of a meeting together. So there we go.
All right, so I just would look around and do we have a head nod? Is that all right?
I think the collective thoughts here
Yeah.
about some process, not a lot,
Yeah.
but some process is in
Is that all
order.
right?
Yeah, that's fine.
So we'll ask for you to bring
Bring
it
back in early January, both the policy and also more background on Mr. Toman to bring back to you to merge the two together. We'll do it ASAP in January.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners, for the discussion. Thank you, Dan. Next item, Board Business Meeting Agenda Review for this Thursday, December 11, 2025. You'll have a presentation on another Business Development Grant Spotlight, this one for Photo Solutions here in the county. 2 public hearings, both are boundary changes, and then a lengthy consent agenda just for the Board of County Commissioners. If you have any questions on any item, please let me know, and/or let me know if I should have staff in the room to answer your questions on Thursday. Thank you. Your final item today is Commissioner Communications. You do have a hard stop at 11 a.m. for your land use hearing. It's 10:48. Thank you.
All right. Commissioner Communication, Commissioner Schrader.
Yes, thank you, colleagues. I'm glad to be back. I had, just on a personal note, I had a wonderful time visiting my grandchildren in Boston for Thanksgiving. But as usual, given their ages and there being little germ carriers, I have once again come back with a nasty head cold. In any case, from Boston, I went to the 2025 fall Board of Directors meeting of the National Association of Counties. That was held in Wise County, Texas, from December 4th through 6th. It was a fantastic meeting. Interestingly enough, this year's president, J.D. Clark, his presidential spotlight is the County Storytellers Symposium. So what we did at this meeting was reflect on the power of storytelling as a bridge between past and present, policy and people, county and country. We were able to hear the Pulitzer Prize nominated author S.C. Gwynn and Texas singer-songwriter Drew Kennedy, and they shared their thoughts through words and song, really attempting to try and weave together America's story, and America's story with counties being the oldest form of government in the United States of America. It was a fantastic symposium. I got to see a number of friends and at least start a kickoff as I try to move up into the executive level of the National Association of Counties. And in any case, that's what I've got for you. I will try and give you some more detailed information next week as I continue to try and unpack and organize all my paperwork. So thanks.
All right. Thank you, Martha. Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, I'll just be really brief in consideration of the time. Just say that quite often you hear me say, it always impresses me how many people watch our meetings. And so last week, a number of comments related to our business meeting and some of the topics. On a positive note, a lot of support for taking some of that budget-related financial stuff and putting that into code. A lot of compliments and also recognition of the challenges we're all facing. That was a big topic yesterday. All 3 of us were at the Oregon Business Council event.
Leadership Summit.
Leadership Council, conference. Annually, I've gone to that every year, and it's an opportunity for businesses to basically bring to the surface and air, what they see from economic development standpoint or impediments that are hurting the state of Oregon. And certainly we heard a lot of that yesterday. Heard the governor speak. She addressed a little bit of that, not a lot of it, and also some follow-up sessions afterwards. So, the point I want to make is that yesterday, bringing this up, that there's just a lot of concerns that governments are actually facing some very difficult times with cost outpacing revenues. That's a very big deal, and how we navigate that. And, no coincidence, today we're having a budget committee meeting, so we'll be talking about some of those budget pressures that we're facing. And Chair, I'm keeping it short, so I yield back.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Helm.
Okay, I'll try to go fast because I talk fast. So Thursday, I visited the Souter Timber grand opening, ribbon cutting out in Estacada. We had gotten a tour of that before, but they had their official grand opening on Thursday. It was a really nice turnout. For those that are not aware, Souter Timber is a cross-laminated timber manufacturing facility out in Estacada in their business park. Fascinating, absolutely fascinating production that they're doing out there. We had the C4 Social on Thursday night as well. Friday morning, I attended the North Clackamas County Chamber of Commerce Christmas Giving Breakfast. They gave a check to Pink Sisters, $5,000. It is a nonprofit that supports women who've had breast cancer. Yesterday, I attended the Leadership Summit, which the title of this, which is fascinating, it's called At a Crossroads. I think we passed the crossroads a while back, to tell you the truth. My takeaways from that were, it sounded like our state leaders might be open to revisiting our land use laws and other antiquated policies that we're working under that are, they need a relook. And it makes me happy to know that could actually happen. The economic development portion of it was also huge. This Oregon Prosperity Initiative that the governor just came out with last week is great. I think Clackamas County is ahead of the game. I think we're already there, knowing how important economic development is to keep communities living and thriving and get people jobs. And there's a lot of work to be done in that area, though, and I see a lot of opportunity for us there. And then last night, I attended the Estacada City Council meeting. They have this new vision of a wine-to-table type of growth in their community, so I tried to answer a few questions, and that's all. Back to you, Chair.
Wow, that was quick. Thank you. We do have a long day, so I'm going to follow my colleagues and keep it short. I just want to, I think sometimes step back and just look at the successes. And what Mary talked about today, to me, is just an absolutely huge accomplishment for people struggling with mental health and behavioral health issues. So this contract she talked about today provides funds for operating supported services at homes located in Milwaukee. On Thiessen, you're correct, it's in the unincorporated area, for 12 clients and another 5 at another location and another 7. And it's just, I know it might not sound huge, but it's definitely a step in the right direction helping us address that population. So I just have to say how excited I am that the county is doing that. So we will be back shortly. Yes, go ahead.
One thing, just mention, throw it out there before I forget. I've been trying to do it for like a week now. My bad, I didn't mention it in the comments. But Commissioner Helm's comments regarding the summit yesterday, or the conference. At C4 retreat that we had in June, economic development was being discussed, and it keeps on coming up. And I've been talking to some other business folks about how we put some muscle back into that effort. We used to have the Economic Development Commission prior to COVID, and after COVID, we shut that down because of the deal. I talked to staff on Thursday. They're entertaining looking at that, and also I've been messaging, soliciting ideas and positive input that maybe we ought to have an economic summit similar to what we did about 12 years ago, which we had at Merrillhurst, if anyone remembers that. But I just want to just throw that out there. That might be a way to not only give economic development a shot in the arm, but also try to reestablish the Economic Development Commission thereafter and make sure that we populate that with the right people and see, again, try to stimulate, because I think all of us are now, it's one of our goals or priorities. We're all talking about it, but maybe that's how we actually put it into play.
And if I can just expand on that, one thing I'm also trying to put together is an energy summit. And it would be great to put those two together because they marry very well.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about that more. As I talk to these outlying communities that need Northwest Natural, they need power, they need energy. Energy's a big, we're almost at a crisis level here in the state. I think they go hand in hand with economic development and what's going to hinder that in the future.
All right. Well, sorry, I'm
That's all
going
right.
to interject because we literally are going to have about 2 minutes break. So we'll go ahead and conclude administrative issues and updates, and we'll be right back at 11 o'clock sharp. So we'll be adjourned. Thank you. And welcome back, everyone, to this afternoon session of Clackamas County Board of County Commissioners on December 9th, 2025. County Administrator Gary Schmidt, would you please call the roll?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Commissioner West is out of the office today. Commissioner Schrader will be joining you online, but is not online yet. There is a quorum present because roll call online, Commissioner Helm.
Here.
In the room, Commissioner Savas.
Present.
Chair Roberts.
Here. And thank you, Gary, for doing that. Would you please introduce the first policy session for us this afternoon?
Yes, Chair. First session today is Community Mental Health Program Local Plan. Presenting is Mary Rumbaugh, Director of Health, Housing, and Human Services, and Karen Kern, the Behavioral Health Division Director of Health, Housing, and Human Services. Go ahead, please.
Good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners. Thanks so much for having Karen and I. So we want to take just a little bit of time to present to you the CMHP Behavioral Health Local Plan. The requirement for a local plan has actually been in statute for a very long time, but it hasn't actually been required since the 13-15 biennium. And as we entered into re-envisioning the County Financial Assistance Agreement back in ’23, the state brought back up the opportunity to do a behavioral local plan that really becomes the scope of work for the County Financial Assistance Agreement, which is really our contract. So we're revitalizing it. It looks brand new from the way that it used to look. So today we're just going to walk through sort of the purpose of it and do a little bit of grounding, and then I'll turn it over to Karen to really talk about how we took the structure of the behavioral health local plan and really did a lot of community engagement and looking at how best to prioritize the services with the funding that we have. So Andrew, next slide, please. So today we're going to talk about really the focus and the framework of this. We're going to talk about how the plan and the budget needs to align with the priority populations. The plan, which we were required by October 1st to submit a draft plan. We have received our feedback on that with our local plan due to OHA, Oregon Health Authority, by the end of December. And the plan and County Financial Assistance Agreement will cover January 1st, 2026 through the June 30th of 2027. Next slide. So the County Financial Assistance Agreement, it is the funding mechanism that provides the dollars to cover core areas within the agreement. Really, as a community mental health program, our responsibility in many ways is around those individuals who might be covered by Medicaid, Oregon Health Plan, but many who are not. Really, anybody in this community who might be seeking services through like our crisis safety net, maybe they've gone to the hospital under a civil commitment. We have a responsibility to actually provide coordination to any of those individuals in our community. So we really are encompassing the entire community. The local plan will really drive then how we spend those dollars. I was really asked to do a little bit of a level set to remind you all about your authority. You as the board sit as a local mental health authority and then appoint really the behavioral health division as the community mental health program. So you determine the need for the local mental health services. You direct us to really operate the community mental health program. We manage the mental health crisis system, including those individuals going in and out of the state hospital. We ensure community-based behavioral health and social safety net services like our crisis line, our urgent walk-in, and we coordinate those mental health and really substance use services. Some of this language is actually pretty outdated in the statute for those who are involved in criminal or juvenile justice. So that's really the seat that you all sit in. You've been hearing a little bit from us about some of the current challenges with the county financial assistance agreement. So I'm just going to hit really highlights of where we still have some tension points or sticking points with moving the contract forward for January 1st. Substantial compliance and as funds allow is a pretty big one, really understanding how the state will define substantial compliance and ensuring that we are only responsible for providing services to the extent that we have funding through the county financial assistance agreement. We're not required to use any other funds to meet the obligation of the contract. We're probably pretty close on landing on that language. We're really wanting to make sure there's not a shifting of risk and liability to the counties, because the statute is clear that the state has the obligation and they delegate the sort of management of those services to us. There's a big shift on how we're doing care coordination, how we're going to be supporting older adults. We know that there's just going to be some funding gaps from the way we used to be able to fund services to the way that we need to prioritize services. And even though the state has been working to reduce administrative burden, there's actually additional reporting and monitoring requirements. So I wouldn't say that we've reduced admin burden, but hopefully what we're doing is a better job of telling our story of how we're actually meeting the needs of the agreement. So I am going to turn it over to Karen, who is our new Behavioral Health Division Director. She's been with us for a couple of months, and she has hit the ground running with this new plan. So Karen, I'll turn over to you.
Thanks, Mary. This next slide illustrates the way that the CFA funding is broken down across the core service areas. And I'll tell you a little bit about what each of those are. You can see that the crisis services and forensic and involuntary services make up about 50% of our funding. Those include involuntary commitment, aid and assist, and anybody really that's engaged in or involved in the criminal justice system, both youth and adults. The residential includes secure and non-secure residential services for people who are actually re-entering the community from those involuntary commitments and or from jail. And then we have a little bit of money to assist, like do rental assistance for veterans or individuals with mental health needs. And we work in collaboration with social services for that. The OHA just released allocations for additional dollars that were added in by HR 2005 for aid and assist. We just got our allocation yesterday. So we are, for Clackamas County, we're going to be getting an additional $290,000-ish a year. That will go specifically into the aid and assist bucket, which will help us be a little bit more robust in those services. And then also we combined the aid and assist team and the forensics team because there was so much crossover. So that actually will allow us to provide a more robust service area, set of services for those folks. That is the high priority, which you'll see in the next slide. And then block grants primarily fund the ESA, which is Early Assessment Support Alliance. That's for transition age youth that are experiencing a first break or a first episode psychosis. And then we have some additional dollars that are set aside for substance use disorder funding through those block grants. And then next slide. And so these are the core service areas that the state has asked us to provide services under. You can kind of see them here. The systems management includes all of the administrative teams that provide the infrastructure for our services. So that would include our quality management, financial and clinical reporting that goes back to the state, any of those functions like that. And then these core service areas map onto the previous slide that I just showed you of the budget breakdown. And then they reflect services for people across the lifespan. So children and families, youth that are transitioning to adults and adults. And then, we have specialized approaches depending on what the age is of the person. Older adults have sometimes much more complex needs, and so they require additional services. Youth and families, same thing. So, mostly what I want you to know is this goes across the lifespan. And then in the next slide, you can see the priorities that the state has asked us to shift funding really towards those folks in that aid and assist. The PSRB is Psychiatric Services Review Board, and JSRB is Juvenile Psychiatric Services Review Board. Juvenile psychiatric services are managed through the Juvenile Department, not Behavioral Health Division, but we do the PSRB folks. With this prioritization, the majority of the funding is focused on sort of the highest acuity or the people that are least able to care for themselves due to their mental health condition. But what ends up happening is that and I would also say the highest cost services. What ends up happening by sort of reducing focus on the priority 4, which is basically anybody with a behavioral health condition that's not in crisis or in the justice system or in an involuntary situation. Those are the folks that if you don't provide some level of service to, they're going to end up coming downstream. So it's just a little bit, for us, a little bit of challenge in balancing serving everybody who needs help within these priorities. And additionally, across these priorities, OHA has defined a set of services that we must fund and then a set of services that we may fund. So even in priority 4, there are still services that we must fund this. And then next slide. We engaged a consultant. Mary mentioned the planning process earlier. We engaged a consultant this year to facilitate several community members, stakeholders, consumers of services in a wide variety of activities, including focus groups. We did a survey. We got quite a few respondents on that survey, and then we did some key informant interviews with school districts or culturally specific services, people who had more of a specialty that we really wanted to dive into. We identified a bunch of needs and barriers and gaps, as well as some strengths, and then some areas of improvement. And then part of what the state has asked us to do through this plan is to identify some of those key unmet needs and then develop a plan to basically meet them through the priorities that they put forth for us. And then next slide. These are all the different, well, actually, this is not all of them. It's a representation of the people that we worked with on this plan. I will say that in working now with colleagues across the state and some of our AOC MHP meetings, I am hearing that what sounds like we did a much more robust engagement than most other CMHPs. And we did include also Multnomah County and Washington County in our engagement with the CCOs and also the hospital systems, because many of our clients will move across the counties to receive those services. But you can see we did quite a deep engagement. And then we also engaged behavioral health staff once we got through with all the community providers and stakeholders, and got sort of their perspective of what it's like on the ground to provide the services and where some of those gaps might be. And then next slide. These were the sort of, there were a lot, hundreds of different things, that we had to analyze and distill down into some sort of focused areas. And these are the ones that sort of rose to the top: expanded outpatient mental health services, timely access, as well as access to specialty services, including culturally responsive and co-occurring disorder services, broader access to crisis services, so reaching those rural populations, and then some infrastructure to improve our data collection and reporting through our EHR. And so those will be the areas that over the next 18 months or so, we will engage in some improvement projects to figure out how to meet those needs. And then next slide. These are just our next steps. We submitted with this packet was our draft plan that we submitted October 1st. We have been receiving, we got feedback back from the state in November, mid-November. We've been working to incorporate that feedback into the final version of the plan. And then, while we've been doing that, we also just received a new budget template a couple weeks ago from the state. And then also we now have these new aid and assist dollars that we need to incorporate. So it's a bit of a iterative process, let's just say, to get to the end. But we do need to submit that. Originally, the date was December 5th. We had asked for an extension to get everything in after we met with you guys.
So that's all we have for the formal presentation, and would welcome any questions or clarifications.
It was a lot.
Yeah,
Good job.
a lot.
And Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, it's a lot, and as I look at ORS 430.630, which is what a local mental health authority is, it's even, seems more lengthy and actually more prescriptive with a lot of responsibility. And I know we use the word funding here and there, so aside from state funding, or perhaps a portion, how much of your funding is state, and then what other funding streams are there, and what percentages are they roughly?
The state funding through this county financial assistance agreement is, actually I have the exact number, $12,367,669. And that is about a third of our total budget. The other major funder is our CCOs, primarily Care Oregon, which is about, let's see, did I write that down? I did, about another $8 million. And then we have some mental health tax. We have a couple $1 million in opioid settlement funds that is actually there, but the services that they're funding are expiring, I think, is it this year or? Yeah. And then we do have some money in our fund balance that is allocated to projects like the Recovery Center and the Crisis Stabilization Center.
All right, so if I take, I guess what would be ongoing dollars, so to speak, assuming 12 million for state and 8 million from CCOs, that's about $20 million a year to address that. But I'm just trying to understand, and maybe legal counsel can help with this, just trying to understand in the scheme of, county's role. This is a state mandate to provide these services. Districts, counties, cities all have responsibilities, and you can usually derive from looking at state statute how they are formed, put together, and funded. But not here on the health authority. And I looked in under ORS 430s, whatever it is, what I say it was. So maybe I look at legal counsel. Is there something that actually mandates the state or obligates the state to provide its funding? It's certainly not, doesn't mandate the county to provide the funding. And I'm at a loss to how, I want to make sure I'm interpreting this as this is not an unfunded mandate, but lack of state funding would be a deep cut, right? You'd be relying totally on CCOs, right?
Correct, and some of the language, so what I would also say is that statute 430 that the local mental health authority falls under, there's been a lot of work to actually update it. There's a lot of sort of old language. When we used to be really a county-based system, Oregon is a county-based system. Other parts of the country are not. But once we added the coordinated care organizations to really become the managed care organizations, the shift of like our role did narrow a little bit to be much more focused on the crisis safety net and then some care coordination for specialty populations. So I would say that part of the reason this language is important is it needs to be updated. To your other point, Commissioner Savas, some of the language that is being discussed in the new agreement really does explicitly say we are not required to provide services beyond what we are funded through the county financial assistance agreement. So if all of a sudden we just exploded with aid and assist and civil commitment and PSRB and we only had enough money in that budget that Karen just gave you, that's as far as we would have a responsibility to go. Now, that wouldn't be the right thing by this community, right? Because we wouldn't be able to fund a crisis line and the 23-hour stabilization center. And that's why it's important that, and it's critical that the CCOs have engaged in providing some of that funding to sort of help offset. So, you know, and the other piece that has happened legislatively is to do cost studies. So we know from the previous cost study with just looking at crisis services in a biennium, I believe it was a $26 million gap. We were able to show that what we need, what it costs to provide crisis services across the state compared to what we get through the county financial assistance agreement had that big of a gap. So that's one of the activities that's been legislated, which is to require OHA to actually do these cost studies as well.
So I'm going to look to legal counsel. Where is that in statute that the state is to provide that, or meet that responsibility?
Commissioner, I'd have to look at that to be specific.
Your microphone, Counselor.
Sorry. I'd have to look at that to answer your specific question of where in the statute is. I don't have it in front of me, but I mean, it's Mary just outlined in terms of the funding. The other unknown here, and Mary or Karen, correct me if I'm wrong, and this was mentioned yesterday at the Mink Bowman Status Conference as well as the CFAA meeting. There's the state is intending on asking for $10 million of the legislature in a short session. What they didn't delineate is what that all would be for. And that's in response to House Bill 2005 being passed and being signed into law. So there's lots of unknowns here. And I would also say to try and answer at least part of your question, this has to do in part with the discussions that are ongoing with the state, with the CFAA agreements. So that doesn't specifically answer your statutory question, but that's something we can look at.
Yeah, well, I mean, essentially without the state funding, it is, you know, minus the CCO, and you're right, Mary, there was a time back, not that long ago, there were no CCO.
Correct.
Right? I mean, that's a
Yep.
new creation, right?
Yep.
And I'm not sure that ORS 430, 630 is really up to date, so to speak, but it seems to me that if the model is and has been such as it is, where the state funds that, and you have all these responsibilities, you know, it ought to be spelled out. We shouldn't be fighting or arguing. It's messy, doesn't do us any good. We're spending a lot of staff time trying to get this agreement in place, and we're not making much progress. So I don't know if we need a legislative fix or we need governor intervention into this, but this has been going on a long time. We've had several, quote, deadlines to sign or by this date and or not. So I'm just at a loss, just looking for that means. When it comes to providing water service, you know, it's established in statute that you can charge rates to do so on, right? But we don't have, I don't see anything in 430, 620 that says where that funding is coming from.
If I can respond additionally, I agree with you that this has to be addressed by the governor as well as the legislature, because there's I don't know where the money's going to come from to pay for what the counties are being asked to do under 2005. I'm no budget expert, but I'm not sure anybody's answered that question yet on a granular level so that counties know. I don't know in any of your discussions, Mary, with anyone within the state, in particular OHA, have they tried to answer that question?
No, I mean, we recognize that, you know, 2005 was sort of intended to sort of fix or adjust, you know, around some of the civil commitment, but it hasn't necessarily equated to then assuring that there is adequate funding to do it. In fact, if anything, there's more reporting, more responsibility being passed through 2005. So Some things have been implemented in 2005, some will be implemented in 2026. So there's a lot more discussion about that particular House bill. So Commissioner Savage, you were not wrong. This has been sort of the flag that community mental health programs have been raising for frankly decades. We're asked to do a lot and we really don't have the funding. I think this new plan and the new budget will finally actually be able to say what be able to show what we've been saying, which we actually don't have enough money for all the things that we're being asked to do. And again, the massaging of the language is to pretty much say you can only go so far on meeting the priorities, and then we're held harmless if we can show we don't have funding just with the CFA. But the challenge becomes we're doing a disservice then to the community. We're not doing the upstream work that's so critical to avoid somebody coming to the attention of law enforcement, jail, and now just naturally coming into the system, right? So, in practicality, you're like, okay, that language protects us, but in reality, it's not the right thing to do for our community members.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. I'll just close my comments with, I don't see how we can obligate ourselves or sign an agreement that doesn't, number one, guarantee the funding and protect us as needed to provide these services. It's not as though we're being asked to. I would say if I look at 43620, we're mandated to, right?
correct.
But yet no funding. So it is an unfunded mandate at this point.
All right, thank you. Gary.
Commissioner Helm and Commissioner Schrader both would like to speak.
All right, how about, I didn't see who was there first.
Commissioner Helm was first.
Okay, Commissioner Helm, go ahead.
Thank you. First of all, Mary and Karen, thank you for the presentation. It always, I don't want to say it always surprises me, but it always pleases me to see that we're ahead of other counties in the work that you do. And I think your leadership shows how much you're doing to try to fix a lot of things that have been broken for a long time. And then I guess my question kind of piggybacks on what Commissioner Savas said. I know that our motion is to advance this plan to another meeting, but is there a risk in doing that without having some sort of finalization on the CFAA thing that's in the works?
I think that will be certainly your discussion, which is the pros and cons of, somewhat being in compliance to the local plan, which of course is directly attached to the county financial assistance agreement. So,
Right.
yeah, I don't have an
So-
answer for that.
Well, I know it's a cart before the horse
Yeah.
thing, and I don't know which one needs to happen first. So, I mean, I love that this is getting an update, and after apparently decades of not being looked at, but then it does put us at a risk when we have this massive gap between the funds that we have available and the funds that the state is willing to part with to help us.
Correct.
All right.
Thank you. Commissioner Schrader.
Hi, everyone. Mary, I also want to echo what my colleague, Commissioner Helm, said. I think you do a fabulous job. I think you're a fantastic director, and all the people that work with you are also highly gifted and motivated individuals. I wanted to do a little follow-up as well with what Billy had to say, and that is the issue with the conversations that have been going on with CAFA. I had a conversation yesterday with Gina, who is the Association of Oregon Counties Executive, Gina Nichols, the Executive Director. And the rest of the counties in the state are still not in alignment. I can say that with clarity, and I think Billy will back me up. And that what Gina said to me yesterday after the meeting was that they have at least agreed to get their lawyers together and to continue the negotiations. So the way I see this pathway could go two ways. Either we don't today move it forward, or we move forward this plan if we are in agreement with the plan that Mary has presented and it works for our county. But I think that when I was reading the packet, one of the options is to approve it, but not present it not give it to the state. So that's kind of a splitting the baby kind of a thing. Do we want to move forward today with this plan, colleagues? Because it does reflect what we need to be doing, but also recognize the fact that it's going to be extremely important for us from a negotiation standpoint statewide to continue to be in alignment with our other counties. So is number 3 where you think we can go today? And that's just my question, and I'm going to throw that out for discussion.
Yeah, I
I'm gonna
think,
be-
and Martha, well, I see Diana Helm's hand up again, I think. Is that correct, Diana? Oh, okay.
Yes, it is. I echo what Martha says. I really think it's fine to move this forward, but I do think we need to delay it until we have better answers from the state, and after they've duked it out with attorneys. That's why I was asking about the risk involved in moving it forward, and I do like option 3, which is the delay after we say thank you for working on it.
Right, and it appears from staff and Gary, it seems like that's kind of a safe direction to move forward on. One of the things I'd like to come back to is if you could pull up the slide that shows priority 1 through 4 on there, Andrew, for us. And I think this is one of the slides that I think is really important, because I believe that, and I'm going to also look to council on this, because I think that one of the big issues is really a lot of wanting to focus on the aid and assist, the PSRB, and the juvenile PSRB, basically, and civil commitment from the state's perspective. And I'd probably like both of you to kind of talk about that, because where I really see as a huge community need is that people who have or are at risk of behavioral health disorders, that is also, and I think you touched on it, Mary, they'll end up on the left scale, and that we as a county want to make sure we're also focusing on that. And so I know council's kind of been involved in some of this, and I want to give both of you a chance to kind of comment about that, and then I had a follow-up question.
I mean, really quickly, the current CFAA that we have had very distinct funding. It was what they call service elements, and gosh, we had 30 plus, if not more, service elements, which actually sort of pigeonholed us, just that amount of money for that population. So the revisioning of the agreement from a programming perspective, which is really the lens I've been sitting, actually gives us a lot more flexibility to bring those funding together and look at the priority population. Frankly, this is the priority population we would be needing to prioritize. We do today. The challenge becomes the funding requirements to provide funding for the priority populations, and only provide it to really priority 4 if funds allow. It really is flipping the script. And it's flipping the script because the reality is aid and assist has just blown out of proportion. They're taking up all the beds at the state hospital. Civil commitment, we're really having to try to manage folks who probably need to be at the state hospital in the community. So the fact is we would have had to do this anyway. And it's unfortunate that it's just decades long of underfunding in the community mental health system that is not allowing us to do the really important prevention work. And until the state can right-size the funding to meet all of the priorities, we are going to have big gaps like this.
Did you have any comments?
Yeah, first, thanks, Mary. I totally agree with that summary and the history that you've outlined. You know, what's really clear is the aid and assist population, as Mary said, has just exploded and will continue to. That was very evident with the statistics provided in court yesterday and for the last 3 years that I was involved in that litigation. The civil commitment population is being underserved because, as a separate lawsuit has pointed out by the hospital associations, they're being tasked with trying to deal with the civil commitment population, taking up ER beds and hospital beds that shouldn't be. So that's impacting county services as well. Priorities 2, 3, and 4 are underserved, frankly, because of what's gone on with the aid and assist population and the lack of an adequate accounting for what's needed at the state level, at the state hospital. The last OHA stats that I looked at on this, and I don't want to misspeak or give the wrong number, but for instance, it's something I pointed out for the last, including yesterday, 3.5 years, I think. The hospital had a certain number of beds they're not using, and they don't want to use them. They don't want to staff them. They don't want to pay for them. And that's unfortunate because there are at least a number of beds that could be addressing the priority 1 population, which oddly enough directly impacts the nature of the contempt finding by Judge Nelson last June and the continued report, as was noted at the status conference yesterday. The state's not even close to being in compliance, which means they're going to be continue to be assessed significant fines, which are up over $1 million at this point as of last week. So this concerns me because there's only so much counties can do in terms of having adequate beds and the appropriate kinds of beds and security for the aid and assist population that the state is really hoping counties take over. They may not ever agree with what I just said, but it's true. So this is the reality of what we're dealing with here. It's as I said yesterday in our meeting with the state, the mental health system in Oregon has been ignored and underserved, underfunded for decades. And this is something that ultimately I know is on the governor's radar. How they're going about addressing it is concerning because, as noted under House Bill 2005, it goes back to the county. That's not the way to solve the problem. So this is concerning.
Thank you, Billy. One of the other things I'd like to go back to, and it was identifying priorities of unmet needs. Could you switch to that slide for me?
That's 11, I think.
I don't think it's, there you go. There it is. And and this is really, I just turned to my colleagues and seeing this is something that to me is really important, and hearing from all those that gave this input, which is, it's pretty telling. I mean, expanding our outpatient mental health services, timely access and access to specialty services, including culturally responsive and co-occurring disorders, a broader access to crisis services, infrastructure to improve data collection and reporting through EHR. And I think that that's where, as a lot of us have said, you know, our population has been kind of underserved for years. And I think it's really time to step up and provide those services. And I most importantly have seen a number of cases where individuals go to the hospital in somewhat crisis, get stabilized, sent home, and really kind of lacking additional resources when they really need them. So I know these are unmet needs. I just would like all of us to kind of think about, as we move forward as a county, kind of how can we find and fill those, along with rallying down at the state legislature and other ways to really get money to help support these. So I think we're kind of, Commissioner Savage, do you want to make a comment before we move forward?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is kind of frustrating, I think, and I think that Martha can relate to this. She's been around a little bit longer than I have. But after 15 years of this and hearing our staff make these presentations and make arguments to meet the need, knowing that this has been a decades old, I almost, when you use the word abandoned, the mental health responsibilities, the state being the one who did the abandoning as far as funding. It's exhausting. We've had people in here in past testifying in tears, for the need. We all go to functions and contribute to nonprofits, and we open up our wallets and write checks to help these people in need. It's not enough. I'm exhausted from it, actually, but we're here. We're continuing to try to do the work. But I just hope that we can get the attention again of the governor to step in and make a difference here, make the change. So with regard to the options here, what I'm kind of looking for, and maybe I don't understand exactly what advancing the mental health local plan is. Is it a signature required on this document?
It's not, it does require, I mean, most CMHPs are bringing it to their boards for final approval. And so the way I read, in particular, option 3 was that we would go ahead and advance it to a business meeting for your approval, but we would not then take action to submit it to OHA. But and in my mind, because of the recess coming up at the end of the year, if the county financial assistance agreement gets resolved and we know we're going to be able to move through that for you all to review and approve it when you return, that would at least give us then the opportunity that you've approved our plan and we can submit it, in that time frame.
Well, I'm just kind of concerned that, the plan's in the packet. If we approve it at a business meeting, there it is. Maybe we didn't submit it to the state, but anyone, including the state, has access to it. So essentially, the plan is approved. And I don't want that interpreted somehow absent the agreement. So I'm more inclined to say, yes, we do advance it to a future county business meeting contingent upon a financial agreement, acquiring or having the signed financial agreement with the state. So is there maybe a way to nuance option 3 to where we can make the approval date or the final approval contingent upon the county financial assistance agreement being signed?
Can I ask this question, Mary? Is there any risk if we simply today say we're not ready to move this forward?
I know there really is not a risk because right now we don't yet have a contract obligating us to this plan. And what you have in your packet is the initial draft plan. What we actually need to bring to to the business meeting for your final approval is actually because we had to submit this before we received the feedback from OHA. So because we had 6 months technically to do the plan, but the first draft was due within 90 days. So there's just parts that still needed to be finished. So that may be a better strategy, council, which is just to let us keep doing our work that we need to do. We can communicate to OHA our pause, and then at the point that we know things are getting resolved, we can then get on to a business meeting or whatever is decided when you're back in January. We don't have a contract. We're not going to have a contract January 1st.
Right. Okay, well, I'm going to take a stab at this then. I'm going to move that we direct staff
Yeah,
to.
excuse me. We have Commissioner Schrader has her hand
Okay.
raised.
Actually, I just let Paul go ahead and make a notion and make a stab at it. I'm okay either way, quite frankly. If Mary says that there is not any major rush, I can get there easily too.
All right.
So that's all I have. So Commissioner, make a motion.
Okay. Because the main purpose of my wording here, I'm going to take a stab at it again, is to at least convey that we are ready to approve the plan. We're ready to meet our responsibilities as far as implementing the plan. We just don't simply have the funding. So I don't want anyone to say we're going to abandon our responsibilities. We're here stepping up and say, so I'm going to try and word it as such. So I move that we direct staff to finalize the community mental health program local plan and present it to the Board of County Commissioners upon receiving a signed county financial assistance agreement with the state.
Second.
All right. Andrew, would you do us a favor and type that up for me? I want to make sure we get this correct.
Just one moment, Chair.
You bet.
incredible pressure Andrew's under as thousands and thousands of people online are waiting for him. I'm kidding, Andrew.
Take your time, Andrew.
No pressure, just thousands of people.
So while this is happening, Chair, I'd like your assistance. So we're over schedule, behind schedule. You have a policy, the 2 o'clock policy session is next, and you have a budget committee meeting after that. Your budget committee members are almost all here. Do you want to keep going in the order we had scheduled? Do you want to put the budget committee first and come back to the PGA? How would you like to move forward, Chair?
I really think that we probably ought to switch to the budget, is what I'm thinking with all the people here. I also have a 4 o'clock. I want you to know that we've got a busy day, so, so I would say let's finish this.
Yep.
And you think, Gary, and then go into the budget?
I agree with that. So PGA, I apologize. We're going to flip the order. So the budget committee will be next. We'll come back to you unless we're out of time. Then we'll have to schedule, well, I'll figure it out with you how to reschedule that. All right.
Sorry about that, Trent, and everybody.
And Commissioner Savas, if you could just verify that I've transcribed this correctly, that you direct staff to finalize the Community Mental Health Program local plan and present it to the Board of County Commissioners upon receiving a signed financial agreement with the state.
That's it.
that
And if
good?
anyone wants to tweak that a little bit, I'm open to any edits.
Call it the signed county financial assistance agreement with the state. CFAA, signed county financial assistance agreement.
Okay, there it
All
is.
right. Thank you, Andrew. You did a great job. So Commissioner Savas has made a motion to direct staff to finalize the Community Mental Health Program local plan and present it to the Board of County Commissioners upon receiving a signed county financial assistance financial agreement with the state. It's been seconded by Commissioner Schrader. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk, would you please call the poll?
Commissioner Helm,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Mr. Chair.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. I think we'll take, Gary, you want to take a short
Short
recess?
break to reset the
We'll
room,
take a short
please.
recess, and we will be back.
Thank you.
Well, welcome everyone to this Clackamas County Quarterly Budget Meeting on December 9th, 2025. We're going to start off by County Gary Schmidt. Would you please call the roll for us?
Yes, Chair. Just so everyone watching online, we're actually on schedule now with the Budget Committee meeting, but the Public and Government Affairs, State and Legislative agendas will be rescheduled either to following this session or next week, depending how time efficient you are today. So that's how we'll do that. For today, this is the meeting of the Clackamas County Budget Committee. Roll call. I'll do the public members first. Online, Jan Lee.
Here.
Thank you. In the room, James Rhodes.
Here.
Wendy Rader.
Here.
Jamie Karn.
Here.
Not here is Kenny Cernak, but we expect him shortly. Members of the commission, members of the committee online, Commissioner Schrader.
Here.
Commissioner Helm.
Here?
In the room, Commissioner Savas.
Present.
Chair Roberts.
Here. Thank you, Gary.
Your mic's off, Chair. Your microphone is off.
Here, Gary. Thank you. And a quick reminder for everybody on the committee. So would you please put your name up and ten it upright so if you'd wish to speak, and I will call on you. And first, Gary, would you please introduce the first agenda item for us?
Yes, thank you. And I want to also introduce our staff support. Our staff today, Elizabeth Comfort, Finance Director, Sandra Montoyer, Budget Manager, Cindy Becker, Project Coordinator in County Administration. The first, and I'll run through this agenda today, supporting the chair. First item is approval of the Budget Committee meeting minutes for your last meeting, September 30, 2025. The minutes are in your packet. Seeking any edits you may have, or if not, a motion to approve the minutes, please.
All right. May I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right. Jamie Carnes moved to approve the September 30th, 2025 meeting minutes. Commissioner Salvis has seconded that. Any further discussion? Seeing none, clerk, would you please call the poll?
Ms. Lee,
Yes.
Commissioner Schrader,
Yes. Aye.
Commissioner Helm,
Aye.
Ms. Rader,
Aye.
Mr. Rhodes,
Aye.
Mr. Karn,
Aye.
Mr. Chair,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0, Mr. Chair, 7-0, Mr. Chair, excuse me.
Thank you. Gary, would you please guide us through the rest of the agenda? For
Yes, thank you,
these
Chair.
points?
Next is creation of County Code Chapter 2.16 Budget Development. Members of the committee, way back in May when you last met, you approved several motions that guided staff on improvements and efficiencies regarding the county budget. And some of those included requiring a 30-year financial forecast, of which the assumptions were tested annually, and that any general fund change by departments that was not budgeted must come back to the Board of Commissioners immediately before any supplemental budgets were discussed. So after discussing with some commissioners and thinking it over with myself, I am proposed that all of those motions, in addition to other county budget development policies, be placed into the county code for two, and that's a big deal, that's a county law, for two reasons. One is it promotes tremendous transparency with the public. Everyone can see exactly what the expectations are for how staff and the board discusses and approves the budget. And it holds everyone accountable, staff to the board to the public, all in the spending of public dollars. So working with staff, I proposed, and the board has now adopted. There's already been 2 public hearings, and it was adopted last week. But I just wanted you to know, we took your input seriously, the motions you made, and it has resulted in the addition of a County Code Chapter 2.16 Budget Development. The packet is in your packet that outlines it. If I may quickly share, the new code says, as I just shared, the county must maintain a 30-year general fund forecast that is reviewed annually by an external party with expertise in forecasting, that all departments, if they have any need for general funds that have not been appropriated, must come to the Board of County Commissioners immediately to describe and explain why there's a need for additional general funds, that all supplemental budgets will comply with Oregon statute and the local budgeting manual produced by the Oregon Department of Revenue, that the proposed budget that the county budget officer proposes to you must be balanced, structurally sound, and sustainable, and that the budget proposed to you must meet a 30-year forecast that has a positive ending fund balance and requires those 3 definitions I just shared are met by the proposed budget, and it requires the Board of County Commissioners to adopt a budget that meets those same requirements as well. Finally, that we will follow the county's existing policy of 5% of the county's general fund held in contingency and 10% of the county's general fund held in reserves. So all that was in the code. The board has approved the code. It is the law going forward. I just wanted you to know your input mattered. Thank you, members of the Budget Committee. We heard you. We've acted. It's now done. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about the county code or what we've done with that work. All right, seeing none. Okay.
Seeing none, Gary.
Very good, thank you. Next on the agenda is Q1, July through September 2025, year-to-date revenue and expenses with our departments. Sandra and Elizabeth, if you'd like to give a high-level overview, please.
Good afternoon, Sandra Montoya. Let's see. Good afternoon, Sandra Montoya, Budget Manager. Before you, like Gary said, is the revenue and expense report. We have broken this down differently than the last time. I want to point that out first and foremost. This version is by department. So every department lives in a fund, and that's the version that you saw the last time as we did a fund view. This has a department view, and this was done by request because this is the way we typically talk about the budgets is by department. So we wanted to make it something that you were more familiar with, and this has that view. The one thing I will point out is that there are many departments that live in multiple funds, and a fund, by definition, has its own balancing set of books. So one fund's money isn't interchangeable exactly with another fund. We have to keep those separate. So, for example, when we talk about CCSO, CCSO lives in 4 different funds. And so that's an important distinction. The roll-up that you see in here is by department, so it's that CCSO department. And then I believe we've done versions for you that are also by fund. So it's a little bit more of a drill down, and just want to point that out so that when we talk about these, we talk about both perspectives, the department perspective and also the fund perspective. And so I don't know that I want to necessarily point out any particular department, but we did want to highlight, you have the items that you requested, which is the prior fiscal year for the same quarter. So it's a quarter-to-quarter view, so same. You have the budget for fiscal year 24-25. You've got the first 3 months in the quarter, so Q1 year-to-date. And then you've got also the percentage of the budget that has been spent. And the last column that you have in the numerical version is the numbers with a PO. So by definition, a purchase order is an agreement, I suppose, to purchase the item. So that means we've got a contract in place, or we've done a request for a proposal where we've committed ourselves to expend up to a certain amount. So the PO isn't necessarily the promise that we will expend that much in a year, but it is absolutely the potential. And where there is agreements, there is that arrangement to expend by the end of the year. So when we talk about Q1 with POs, that's important because that's the commitment that we have to expend by the end of the fiscal year. So we've done that by department. And then the last column is notes. And I'll say those are partly subjective to my interpretation as I was analyzing each of these departments. Where I was able to identify a reason for the variance, I highlighted that for you. And where I wasn't, where the variance wasn't readily available, I just made a note of like, the expenses are over budget, what we would anticipate for this time of year. And we used a simple benchmark of 3 months divided by 12 months is 25%. And that's the benchmark that we were using to identify, is this on track or is this higher or below? And with that, I'm going to pause and just see if there's any questions on any of the departments that you may have.
I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Commissioner, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Cindy. Cindy wanted me to point out that in the personnel services, which Wendy, at your request, you had asked that we break it out the last time. So we've expanded that for you so you could see the detail. But I wanted to point out that for quarter one, while the benchmark is 25%, because quarter one had one less pay period in it, it's actually at 23.1%. So that is the benchmark for personnel.
Yeah, so I was looking at, for example, the DA's office and what was the other one? The clerk. I can see that the revenues less expenses is in parents as a negative. Page 18, for example, and page 17, which is the little tiny page number at the very bottom. So, well, not say 7, I'm sorry, 18 and 18, 19, county counsel's office as well. Just that, and also disaster management's got parentheses, so, and also the district attorney's got parentheses of 3,214,000, for example. So does that mean that we're negative?
Okay, so yes and no. There's a couple of things, so thank you. On the revenue side, general fund support for those departments that are in the general fund, and then also H3S receives some general fund support, and DTD receives some general fund support. We give general fund support. General fund support is the subsidy from the general fund that is given to those departments, and we give it once per quarter. So in this case, in Q1 ended, but we haven't distributed general fund support as of that date. So quarter one had July, August, and September. We distributed general fund support on October 20th, roughly. So at the time that this report was run, general fund support had not been distributed.
Okay, so I have no tool to determine whether or not that quarterly apportionment of general fund is 3.2 million more or less. I have no means, there's nothing here that tells me. So for that, for sake of information, it's kind of incomplete, essentially.
Correct. I think what you would probably need to do, and sorry, I'm going to have you do a little bit of math, is looking at the quarter one and doing a mental calculation of, okay, general fund support would roughly be 25%. What we do, and I think I shared this during one of our budget committees, is that several years ago, we used to just give 100% of the general fund that was budgeted. Now what we do is we look at the percentage expended, and that's the percentage of general fund support that's given, up to that 100%. So it's not just a carte blanche, it's actually looking at that percentage. So for example, in the county council, if the year-to-date was 23% expended, that would be the percentage of general fund support given.
Okay. Did you want to say something?
I do, Commissioner Savis, I might add that what we're looking at in the first quarter is the timing of the expenses, because we know that there's the general fund subsidy that's going to be applied, so we're not too concerned about that revenue. We do look at other revenues like grant revenue, but we're primarily looking at the expenses to see within the first quarter if they're in tempo of being in the first quarter of the fiscal year, or if we've already exceeded the tempo for the year, then we have to start looking at where are we going to end the fiscal year. So that's what this report would really want to provide for you.
Okay, so I see how you're using that as a tool. So you're looking at, again, you said at the expense side of that. And if I take your example then, so on page 22, if I take the personnel services line, that apportionment, well, that's 24, 25, so 335, 291. So give me that example with personnel services, Elizabeth. What column would I be looking at here? Because you got 20.2% of the year to date, not 25.
Oh, so, okay, so I'm sorry, I'm going to respond to that. Using your example for district attorney, page 22, the personnel services is 20.2%. If that was the only expenses that this department had, we would apply 20.2% expended times the 15.7 in general fund support, and that's the amount that would be given to district attorney for this quarter.
Okay. Honestly, I do struggle with that, so it's not that clear. But for sake of argument here, I want to go back up to the sheriff's levy as an example, and help me with that.
Page 16?
Yeah, so the other thing I will say here on all these, we're assuming that DA clerk's office, all those things I cited in those pages, that the postings are up to date, minus the general fund contribution?
Correct.
Okay. So, page 16, so I'm looking at on the revenue side, help me out with, well, so you're saying it's not really good on the revenue side, it's on the expense side, you're using this as a tool.
For the
So-
general fund, the revenue is incomplete because they don't have the general fund subsidy. The levy, because it doesn't receive general fund subsidy, this would be complete.
Okay, so then on the revenue side, how do I see that so I see quarter 24, 25, which is last year. So the 32 is what's budgeted, so that's the annual amount, right? The 32 million, that's the annual collection?
Oh, yes.
So where do I see the quarterly element of that?
So Commissioner, again, for anyone that's receiving money from separate taxes, you can see the majority of the taxes received November, December. So you wouldn't see that right now for
Okay.
the levy.
Okay, so let's go back down the expense side then. On the expense side, you got 3449, or 3,449,000. So is that on target? And if so, gauge, it says 19%. There's again, no general fund here, so why is that not 25%?
This reflects their expenditures, so they expended less than what we'd expect for that quarter and on levy. Whereas the other two, materials and services and capital outlay, you can see they've gone above the 25%.
All right. Yeah, it's hard for me to extrapolate any conclusions out of this.
And it is, I think this is exactly, it's discussions that are needed. I think in CCSO, the important thing would be is 19% on the levy, so page 16, for personnel, 19% to date. What we would anticipate is the 23.1, so the levy is a little bit less than what we would anticipate. And then you would compare the levy fund compared to the general fund compared to ELED, and you would see, are those on track with one another? If they were on track with one another, then we would see that, okay, the distribution of expenses is being shared by the funds. Where there's differences, those are probably questions that need to be asked, and those are probably the answers, probably vacancies in various funds.
I think the main thing is, again, looking at Fund 100, on page 14, you'll see the personnel services total is 20.6%, again, under the first quarter benchmark, but materials and services and capital outlay are over, capital outlay significantly over. Capital outlay is kind of tough because they're kind of one-shot deals, and so something may happen, in the first quarter, and you may not have an expense the rest of the year. So that's a little bit of an anomaly. But you can see that both Fund 100 and the levy have spent less than the benchmark in personnel services, and then over in the other two.
Okay. I've talked a lot, so.
No, and we appreciate that you're talking through that. I think that some of the items that we would point out, like on page 14, CCSO General Fund 100, it's where you're seeing big spikes from the benchmark. So the benchmark for personnel of 23.1, where you're seeing part-time salaries of 31.5%. That's a significant increase. Where you're seeing overtime at 28.7%. That's a big increase. And similarly, vacation payouts, although those are things we don't have control over, those are things we have to be mindful of because those will cause that budget to go over, especially when you consider that personnel is probably in the neighborhood of 72% of this budget. Anything that happens in the personnel that's above those normal is gonna cause us to possibly go over budget. It will require that the rest, the materials and services and capital, be very closely monitored in order to stay within that budget. Otherwise, it could go over.
Yeah, well, thank you, Sandra, for that. I would like to get to a point where, whether it's public facing or not, but at least have, for the budget members, committee members, it'd be nice to be able to see at some point where we are, any department, any budget, have postings regular so we can see it, knowing that as tight as the budget is getting and tighter and tighter and tighter, that we're looking at it more frequently and with discipline.
Commissioner, just real quickly, if I was a department director, I'd be looking at all these areas where there's significant overages, and then I would dive into my budgets into each of these categories to find out what's going on. Was this a one-time purchase? Is this a trend? What's happening? Everyone has the ability to access OpenGov. We can actually spend a session going over that with you, how to do that. So the information is live, it's available to anyone who wants to use it. It's, you have to be doing it a lot to really kind of do it easily, but, and if there's a different way we can present that, we'd be happy to do that, if you would rather have reports like this. But I think, again, this first quarter is really kind of a heads-up quarter for the department director to say, okay, this is what's happening with your money, take a look at it, look deep in this, and see what you can do to reverse those trends now before you get too far into the year.
Other questions? Commissioner Helm, online. Commissioner Helm.
Thank you. Yeah, Cindy, what you just said was that this is a heads up to the departments that this is your first quarter spending. Has that not been done before? Where they've gotten these numbers on a quarterly basis, or is this new? I'm new, so if it's new, if it's been done, I just want to know if it's. And I also think too, based on Commissioner Savas's kind of comments on the CCSO, I almost think we need to pull that out and have a different format at looking at their expenditures, because they do have so many different revenue sources. I know it would be helpful for me, instead of including it in the entire budget, is just have a separate meeting on that altogether. Yeah.
So the expectation for the departments is that they all have access to OpenGov. They also have access to PeopleSoft, which is where they enter all of their information. So they should be doing this all the time. This is really for you, for this committee. And if this is the first time a department has seen this, then I would be nervous about it. So they have the information available to them.
Yeah, Commissioner Helm, good question. We have been producing finance reports monthly and quarterly and annually for the departments, for the county-wide, for years. They've always been available. We have a special share drive that all employees have access to. What we're doing differently, this is the third year, is that we're closing periods. This was a big push that we did several years ago. We redid the chart of accounts. We've tightened up our controls, our processes for timely, accurate accounting. And so the difference that you're seeing today is that we are now closing periods, which these periods should be complete. So as Commissioner Savas asked, are all the entries in? Our expectation is yes, because we are closing the period. So this first quarter, these 3 months are closed. No additional entries will be added. So if someone is behind in their expenditures, or say they have a late invoice from a vendor, it'll be entered in the current open period. That could be an anomaly to that expense or that line item for that month. And then they would have to understand, it's like, okay, we got the invoice late. So this really should have been in August, but now it's in October. So those stories are part of the descriptions as they go through their financials.
Okay, then, and one follow-up, and this might be for Gary. Gary, then do you flag all the departments that say, have you all reviewed and give me a feedback or anything on your first quarter spending? Again, I'm not sure if you do that or not.
I talk to my direct reports every single week or month when I meet with them on their budget. Absolutely, Commissioner.
Okay, thank you.
And in terms of your question about pulling out CCSO, I mean, we can provide an extraordinary amount of detail. I just don't know how much you want. The two main funds obviously are Fund 100 and the levy, and then would be ELED. And then there's a couple of very small targeted funds. We can pull out the report. It's just a question of how much is enough, how much detail.
All right, thank you.
And I just was going to make a comment for Commissioner Helm's sake. And I know former captain at the Sheriff's Office of Roads and I both would do this, is we would watch these quarterlies and adjust accordingly. And it can have a number of variable factors. Suddenly, you might have somebody retire, you're trying to shift things. But I think the other thing, which is really important to pay attention to, is the fact that if you're at that 25%, right, and I have a ton of vacancies, that is a good indication that I'm going to have to maintain those vacancies to balance for the end of the year. Mm-hmm. So that's where I think there becomes a lot of debate. Can I fill these or not? And it gives you kind of really a good forecast for how I'm going to end up at the year. But I want to make sure, gave a chance to the other budget committee members if you had any questions or comments.
Well, I would just like to say I really appreciate the detail because it just helps me to see the anomalies that occur so that at the end of the year it's just not as confusing. So I really appreciate it. And then I just wanted to ask, in your view, I mean, just at first glance, it kind of looks like the items that are generally over are the materials and services and capital outlay for this time of year. Is that normal, or would you say that's unique just to the season, or?
It could be contracts and waiting for the first of the fiscal year to make that major capital improvement project expense. So it's really based on the business of that department.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
So
nothing
it's
alarming. I didn't see anything that would cause
alarming.
alarm.
And what about the vacation payouts? I mean, is that normal for this time of year too?
Yeah, getting to the end of the
everybody's
calendar
like-
year, December 31st.
Okay.
Extra cash.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
And that's a tough one because that has changed. And as Sandra said, we have no control over if someone, they get their payout and depending on their union contract, and you just have to go with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you were asking with regard, or Mr. Softis, with regard to the Q1 is maybe because that's the total year budget. If there was a total year plus break it out so that you saw the Q1 or what it should be. I mean, just so if you wanted an easier way to compare. Is that what you were talking
Well,
about?
that'd
Like
be-
you just couldn't see the,
Yeah, that'd be clean, it'd be cleaner, an easier read, right?
Yeah,
An
so-
easy read of that, as well as knowing, the status, if the posting status, right? Is it complete or incomplete? Because there's not a lot of value in looking at a line or the budget if you know that the postings aren't complete.
but isn't that what the POs do? No, okay, so that's different, okay. Yeah, I mean, it just seems like if everything in that fiscal year 25, 26 was Q1, and then a total separate, I mean, it's easier to do the math. You know, just a thought.
If I could share on, if the postings are complete, really the only ones who would know if the postings are complete at this time is the departments. Because finance, all we're doing is reporting what we have. But let's say that the department ordered some big equipment and it's 500,000. If they're in the plans of spending, or if they have spent it, but the PO hasn't been done, and we do have some of those that the departments are doing things out of order, and we have to retrain, go through that process. But if they haven't submitted the invoice, we don't know that has already been completed. We won't know that until we receive all of that request to pay. And that wouldn't be in here. It might be on the PO side, but it wouldn't be in process of payment. And so it wouldn't be recorded on the expense side.
Okay.
POs, sometimes departments will have POs as kind of a holding contract. And so it may be, $5 million, but they're really only going to use $1 million. So just because it's in that column with the POs doesn't mean it's going to necessarily be used.
Gotcha.
I'm sorry, James, go ahead.
Two questions. First, the POs then, that's encumbered, is what we're saying? Okay, thank you. And thank you for the whole report and the level of detail, and I appreciate it. I'm very grateful for your notes that help me look at the highlighted areas. There's quite a few of them. Can you help me, I guess my last question is, draw my attention to any of the top things that stand out that you are trying to illustrate for us that I may have missed in here? What is the most alarming? What is the thing that I should be looking at most? What is what stands out to you in this report that should draw my attention?
So Q1 is always a little bit difficult because things are typically a little bit slower. I would say that the department's focusing on revenue. So anywhere where you see that the revenue is a little bit slow, especially if it's grant related, is making sure that claims are submitted so that the revenue can come in timely. Because the reality is, this is the report for Q1, but we're now in December. So departments can absolutely use this to say, oh, are we on track? A director could look at this and, talk to their reports and say, okay, are the claims in for these? Are we going to be on track by Q2? The personnel, I think overall is what we would expect. There is a few departments that, maybe have excess vacancies or the overtime has to be monitored. Those are things that can absolutely be done at this time of year. And like Chair Roberts said, then it can direct their actions in other areas. Probably the one capital outlay is a little high for what I would expect at this time of year. But when we drill down into the detail, that was vehicles being purchased by CCSO and their operations. And if we look back, it's vehicles that were ordered last year that are now coming, and so now they're being paid for. So there's reasons for things, and so we just need to monitor. But again, it's having the reports and the data inform current and future decisions. It's, okay, based on the numbers that we're seeing, what actions do we have to take going forward? Does that mean we can't make more purchases because it looks like we're going to be really tight? And so that's really what the quarterly reports are supposed to do, is inform those future decisions so that at year end, you're coming in within budget.
Thank you.
And I do want to add that departments are getting them monthly, so
Yes.
there are no surprises on a quarterly basis.
They're getting this report like this?
It's very similar to this. It's an Excel file for each program, line of business, fund, and department.
Okay, thank you.
And we've created this report a little bit special for you for the formatting, but the reports, the data is in the system and available really with a day lag. So the departments can get it, and it's much more timely.
And then, I guess lastly, I am interested in some sort of instructional period on how I could access and make effective use of.
OpenGov.
Yes, thank you.
You're speaking my love language. Absolutely, we can do that.
Yeah, the only area that, in response to your question, typically it looks like personnel they're doing fine in all the departments. Where the area is that are kind of heads up is M&S. You'll see a lot of comments here about departments going over their quarterly amounts. So again, if I'm a department director, I'm going to drill down. There's like 20 categories in M&S that you can look into, and then you can see which of those areas is actually causing that increase and decide, is that a one-time purchase of something, or is this an ongoing trend? So there's a lot of detail, and in OpenGov, you can look at all of that.
I look forward to it.
All right, any other questions?
Yeah, I have one. So, does HR, I say HR, tell me how payroll works. I mean, is this actually up to every department to actually post the paychecks for? No, and I didn't think so. So who does that? Is that HR and then or is it the treasurer's office?
Finance.
It's finance.
Yeah. So departments, employees enter their time, supervisor approves it, 2 weeks later, the payroll is processed. When the payroll is processed, we, just days before, it gets posted, all the costs get rolled up and get posted in the system. So at most, and this is one of the things we communicate to you all, is that payroll is roughly 3 weeks behind. And so that's, the paycheck is 3 weeks behind the end of a payroll period. So that's why contingencies and reserves are important, because from the end of a period, you still have expenses that will come after that are tied to that period, if that makes sense. I'm sorry, and I lost my train of thought.
Well, my point is, so with that as an example, right? It's not up the responsibility of the department, as you said, it's finance that does that. So essentially, that one we know is as recent as possible, posted, so to speak, right?
Yeah,
So,
the only way that could be off is if a department wasn't recording an employee's time,
right.
which I would imagine the employee would then raise the flag and say, hey, I didn't get paid. But if the employee got paid, yes, it is absolutely being recorded.
Right, and it would just, so it would seem that, that one there would be a known. Payroll's the biggest expense any department has typically, right? Very few exceptions to that, so, you know, that's definitely one indicator. As I'm digging into the tougher issues that we have dealt with before, and the board next week is gonna be talking about the levy, but it appears to me from the work that I've done and staff's done and questions I've asked, it appears that as whether we looked at year one of the levy or year two or prior to the labor contract or prior to the allocated cost change, that it was insufficient and perhaps grew more insufficient to where the monies collected were less than the obligation that's listed in the levy, right, for all those positions. And not knowing how many of those FTEs have been filled, knowing that's also moving, and that goes for any department, frankly. How do we gauge, how would that show up here, essentially? How would we be able to see that with regards to any FTE vacancies? So we talked about payroll. Let's say you have 2 vacancies, right? You're clipping along, or let's say you have 10% shortage of people. Let's just say it's a bigger number for my point here. If we're looking at, and they were fully staffed, the hypothetical, they're fully staffed, then maybe we would be over, right? So I'm just trying to see how we gauge, you know, now we know that posting in that particular line item is current. But if all those positions weren't filled and we're at 25%, and then you fill in 10% more of the FTEs, now you're above the 25%, right, of the expense side. So how do we see that?
Essentially, we'd be comparing budget to actuals. So we know what the budget is for personnel, and then we would look at, we know that the department, whatever department is, has that budget, and we're looking to see, are they actually using it? If they're not, that means that they've got a bunch of vacancies. And then the question is, at the end of the year, if they have utilized all those funds, and where did that money go? So did it go somewhere else in personnel? Did it go to M&S? What happened to that money if, in fact, those vacancies stayed there? Or was it used to balance their budget? So it's not, you'd have to look at different pieces of information. It's not like every part. We can also show you at each month how many vacancies a department has, if that would be helpful. We have that information. But it's really looking at, it's like this 3D box of looking at all of those things together.
Yeah, I guess another way of doing it would have an FTE count, you know, but it's what's budgeted and then what's actual. That would kind of at least be able to tease out whether or not that number we're looking at on a percentage basis of what was burned in that quarter was a fully funded environment or a fully staffed environment or a less than fully staffed environment.
I think what we can do is for the next quarter, when we show you this report, in that personnel section, we'll identify the filled and vacant positions and then the percentage so that you can compare. Again, it's going to be a little bit generalized because it's 3 months versus 1 month. And from 1 month to the next, you can have lots of changes, hirings, attrition. I mean, you can have changes within those. So it would be a point in time, but that would give you a little more information.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Gary, anything else? Not on this topic. May we move on? All right, go ahead. Next item, general fund forecast with unaudited 24-25 ending balance. I will let Sandra and Elizabeth present, and then I'll jump in after that. Go ahead, please.
Okay, so page 43 of your packet, the general fund forecast is 2 pages. And also along in your paper, we've given you the blown-up version of the forecast. So if it's easier on your eyes to see the large one, please do. What we've done is we've hidden years, columns that where it just went as expected, I guess would be it. We identified years where there's a change, and if you're okay, I'm going to go high level at what you're seeing. First is fiscal year 24-25. We're calling out that it's unaudited. The reason is because the audit is being completed now. So there is still a potential for the auditors to make adjustments to these figures, and we want you to know they're not set in stone yet. But as of today's date, or as of October 28th, these are the numbers that we have for fiscal year 24-25. The first year of the forecast is the current year, and what you have is the budget. It's the Q1 budget. The only adjustments that we have is personnel services and general fund support. And in the assumptions, we call out that there is a 2% vacancy factor built into personnel costs. And in general fund support, we assume that we're going to give all but 0.5% out. And the reason for that is because there may be a department that goes over and then other departments that go under. And that leads me to the beginning fund balance in fiscal year 25-26. The first note that we call out is that our beginning fund balance for 25-26 is 1.3 million less than budgeted. So when we were doing the budget and when we showed it to you in May, we assumed that we would begin the year at 110 million. That did not occur. And we had some over expenditures in the county, and so that is the result. It impacted the beginning fund balance by a negative 1.3 million. So those are the changes that you're seeing. The first 12 years of this budget forecast end in a positive number, meaning that contingency and reserves, those policy levels are met. And in addition to those policy levels being met, we have unappropriated ending fund balance. So those are funds above and beyond the policy limits, and those are funds that we anticipate and have been anticipating will be needed for the courthouse over the 30-year period. So we've got that built in. Then and I should have said through year 13, not 12. In year 14, that's the first year where we see a negative ending balance, and you see the negative 378. And I say negative, meaning that's the first year we're dipping into reserves. It's not, you can see reserves and contingency is still a very healthy 63 million. That's the anticipation, but we've eaten into that by 378,000. We continue to eat into that balance every year. And then in year 19 of this forecast period, that is the peak. That's the most that we anticipate at this point in time of eating into the reserves, and that we eat into it by 12.6 million. Again, contingency is maintained at the policy level, but we are using reserves. That's where it starts to decrease. And so we turn the tide, and we see that we start eating into it less every single year. And in year 23, that is the last year that we anticipate eating into the reserves. And then we start to build up that unappropriated ending balance. And by year 30, we are meeting contingency, we're meeting reserves, and we have unappropriated ending fund balance at a positive of 85.8 million. So a little bit of a mixed bag in this. Is it more severe than when we had it in May, when you guys balanced this for the 30 years and there was no year in the red? Absolutely. We've had some changes, known changes, and if I have you turn that page to adjustments, those are the ones. Assumptions, assumptions. We've got the assumptions on the left for how we've built the forecast, and then we've got adjustments on the right side of that table. And so we've had some known information, and I will say, we don't put this into the forecast until we have known information. So there may be things that are in discussion now where the numbers aren't firm or the timeline isn't firm. Those don't make it into the forecast until we are given an amount and a year. And once we're given that and we're told, put that in the forecast, this is, as good as it's going to get until the deal is done, then we put it in. So adjustments that we've got is we've got some settlement agreements that happened in this current fiscal year. We've got the 100,000 that the board wants to give for the SNAP assistance. That has now been built in here. In 26, 27, we've got a savings for the assumption of the old courthouse being sold. And that's a savings in the old courthouse expenses of about 500,000 per year. We've also got 7.3 million for the 2012 debt for the PSB and Sheriff Training Center. That's 7.3 million. In 27, 28, we've got the 6.8 million balloon payment for the 2020 PDX Milwaukee Light Rail. Those are all things that are known. We've got 28, 29, one time for the 8 million Redland Road improvements. That is an estimated cost, but that is the year that we anticipate it. And like I said, we've got the 8 million built in. The next thing we want to call out is that in year 13, this forecast goes from red to black because PERS starts to decrease. If we look at PERS and their projection over the 20 years, PERS begins to assume that that unfunded liability will be paid off. That amortization of that unfunded liability is 20 years, and we begin to decrease those rates. That's an assumption, but it's an assumption that we have been given by Oregon PERS, and so we are showing it in here. And then, like I said, at the end of that 30 years, we do believe that this forecast that the general fund will be stable, sustainable, and what's the other word? Balanced. Thank you.
All right. Any other comment?
Yeah, I have, so, while I see those payments, the balloon payments, and the Redland Road project, in year 4 or year 28, 29, what contributes to going in the red in year 19? What anomaly is there? We know our tax base scheme is revenue scheme is pretty consistent, right? What is it that trips us to that one large number back in the forecast in the red I saw of 12 million? Yeah, 12 million in the red. What anomaly is taking place there?
So it's not any one thing. The one-time payments are actually, they're a blip because they don't escalate. It really is that escalation of costs over time that causes that to occur. So it's absolutely personnel costs. It's PERS. Trying to think of just some of the other materials and services to some extent, but it's a smaller portion. I'd say it's personnel driven, and the fact that our revenue doesn't escalate at that same level. So if you had revenue that kept time with the growth in costs, we would be okay. But for a period, our expenditure growth outpaces our revenue growth.
And Commissioner Savas, if I may add, the other question you could ask is, why does it go back into the black? That's where we're going, because if we did not have what you see in forecast year 37, 38 with the PERS projected, to be paid off, and then those PERS rates go down. If we didn't have that, the red would continue. So the expenses still are increasing. It's like, what is bringing the expenses back down for PERS?
Well, I appreciate the exercise, and I know this is dynamic, and every year we'll see something different and unique, and I think that's really the intended, well, I'll say intended outcome, but it's the outcome that, due to the dynamics of things that are gonna be there, but I just appreciate it. We can adjust as we need to, right, over time. That's what this is all about, so, thank you.
All right. I know like I said, I have a drop dead at 4 o'clock that I have to be somewhere else, so so Gary, do we have much more, sir?
No, but I need your input, Budget Committee members. So this forecast shows overall our organization is still financially stable, which is great news. I am concerned about the 9 years that the county forecast is in the red. Again, knowing these are all assumptions. Almost none of us will be here in 14 years. But I hate to put future boards or future administrators in a tough spot. So my question to you is, this meets the county code, the board approved, that the 30th year is in the black? That is true. But are you concerned that there's 9 years in that 30 years that is not sustainable? And if so, I'd like to have your feedback, because that means I will make reductions in departments to balance it all out over 30 years.
So,
I'd love your feedback, please.
Budget Committee, you're right. Go ahead.
I just have a question. If you spend down the unappropriated fund balance, does that affect your ability to self-insure?
So self-insurance is held in a different fund.
Okay.
That's in Fund 761, which is our risk, and 760, which is our benefits, which are outside of the general fund. This assumes that the general fund continues to contribute its portion
Okay.
of the cost for the forecast period. But the general fund alone doesn't carry
Okay.
the self-insurance fund.
Okay, so that's not a risk. So really, this is about whether or not the PERS projections are correct? Because that's what's, if it's personnel-driven, it's PERS. That's sucking you dry. Yeah, so.
Go ahead.
So my response, Gary, is that we're doing this exercise, and started this exercise years ago with the 30-year forecast in order to make sure we meet the courthouse payment. So as I'm looking at year 30, the 17 million, that's the last payment?
Yes.
Okay. So if this lower number, the appropriated ending fund balance, has that 9-year in the red, I guess that's something we can talk about. Maybe next year we'll talk about it again if it looks different. What I care about, if it self-corrects, essentially, if these assumptions self-correct and we're making the payment, make the final payment, that's what I care about, right? We wouldn't be doing this if we didn't have that lump sum, because after, in year 31, I won't say we're gonna have a surplus, but we're gonna have a huge relief, an annual relief of 19, 17, 18, 19 million dollars, because we were paying up to 20 million for a payment. You know, I'm sure that number probably will change, right? Everything's dynamic, but that's the goal, is making the courthouse payments. I'll leave it there.
Okay, all right. Any other feedback?
I'm fine with it, you know. And I think probably the only question I have, which is the personnel costs and the PERS cost of, I guess this is my question, is wouldn't we have seen this last year in your projection? What is different, right? When we're looking at that 30-year forecast, because I don't think things have changed that much in personnel, so maybe you could explain.
And I think it's an error. We didn't account for the decrease in the unfunded liability. We assumed that continued escalation, and it was as we dove in one more time. And actually, so I would say thank you to all of you, because you pushed for us to review and, you know, have that external audit. And as we prepped for that, to make sure that was identified. So it's a known that's out there. PERS, the amortization of that unfunded liability is well-known, and so we built that into the forecast, where it had not been previously.
Great. Commissioner Schrader would like to speak.
Yeah, I just want to thank you for a very, very great presentation today. I had an interesting question. Okay, so assuming that we're in the red in the future, is there a possibility, since we've been paying it off all along, however, at that point, to switch to another tool, a bond or something of that sort, to kind of help finalize those last few years? I mean, is that something we could go to the voters? I mean, I won't be here either. I was just kind of curious if that's something that's doable. If we can maintain, you know, being fiscally solvent pretty much until then.
Are you looking at a refinance? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, pretty much. In
Yeah.
other words, I mean,
Yeah, I would, Commissioner Schrader, I love all ideas. All ideas are good. At this time, taking out debt would really be negative to the financials, because then we would take on more debt with additional interest. It's best to, in my opinion, is to look at our revenues and our expenditures and just be strategic each year.
Okay. Thank you for that. I was just going to throw that idea out there, but you are the fiscal experts, and I trust your judgment. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, Gary?
I'm not hearing any other feedback, so. All right, thank you, that's helpful. The last item is your next committee meeting, which we're not going to do here with you in person, but it'll be in February. We'll email you for dates that work for all of you, but your next committee meeting will be in February, just before I present my proposed budget. So we'll give you an update on where we're at that point. So that's the last item on the agenda for the Budget Committee, Chair.
All right, well, as always, I want to thank Citizen Budget Committee members for their time and commitment to come here, and particularly in these stormy weathers, it's even more risky to get you guys out and about, and want to just say thank you. And Gary, do we want to continue, or I have to ask you?
Tonya, can you do it in 20 minutes? I'd like to go forward, please, Chair. Yes. All right, we're going to go right into our next policy session then. Your final one, which is going back what was earlier on the schedule.
Thank you.
2026 state and federal legislative agendas. From Public and Government Affairs, presenting is Tonya Holowetsky, Director of Public and
Thanks,
Government
James.
Affairs. And Trent Wilson, Government Affairs Manager. Sorry, we're rushing through, so everyone please, we're going to just move right on. Go ahead, please, Tonya and Trent.
Thanks, James.
Go ahead, please.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. We'll make this quick. Every year, we seek your approval of state and federal agendas, and because this gives us clarity, the clarity we need to advocate on your behalf. The proposed agenda in the packet is a result of input from meetings we had with each one of you, interviews with departments, and alignment with the county's new strategic plan when appropriate. As you know, PGA leads the county's legislative work. Our work is supported by lobbyists at both state and federal level, and through incredible coordination and teamwork across all departments. At this point, I'm going to hand it off to Trent to go over the details quickly of the agendas, and hopefully we'll have time for questions. Trent.
Yes, thank you. We'll have plenty of time. I'll go very quick. Included in your packet are the proposed agendas for 2026, both state and federal, as well as a policies and messaging guideline that we always ask for you to approve every year. As a reminder and for the benefit of the public, our agendas are broken out into 3 sections or chapters, whatever you want to call it. Initiatives being one of them, policies and principles. Initiatives are those things that, if not for Clackamas County, nobody else would be advocating for them, so they are the tippy top of our agendas. Policies are those things that are also still very important to the county and the board, but in most cases, we have friends and allies who are advocating in our similar position for those topics, like the housing crisis. And then, of course, there are principles which more broadly cover the scope of county work that we want to monitor and be aware of throughout the legislative session. As you know, there are many bills that come. We can't always anticipate everything. Those principles help us to capture our ability to advocate for or against whatever those may be, as long as it's in the best interest of the county. So on the state agenda, and really on the state topics in general, or specifically, I want to focus on the ecosystem of what to expect in 2026, which is that it is a short session. It is 35 days. It will go really fast. And there are bill limits, which is great. There's only going to be about 300 bills or less. But also, and I think you're hearing this in many venues, that the state has made it very clear that it needs to address some major funding reductions, and the exact amount is unknown, but the most recent revenue report is estimated to be about $65 million in reductions. And I want to be super clear that that number could be much higher, and the next revenue report will come out the first week of February, and that may adjust that number up or down, and I just can't tell you what it's going to be right now. So on the agenda, state agenda in particular, at a very high level, the county initiative will be to continue pursuing funding for the Recovery Campus. Because it is a short session and because of the budget crisis that the state finds itself in, we recommend that you focus only on one initiative this year for the state. I'm going to skip the policies in the interest of time, but I do want to sort of acknowledge that in your agenda, in the back, in the principles, is a comment about a vibrant economy, and that's pulled out of your strategic plan. And of course, we adjust that language to be more broad, speaking about the roles of the county. And the vibrant economy language I want to call out because you're all hearing a hot trend right now amongst state legislators and state leaders about the state of Oregon's economy and what that needs to look like for Oregon moving forward. You're seeing the governor move forward with her prosperity roadmap, and you're starting to see and hear about bills that Hillsborough may be pursuing to try to advance different ideas. And so I want you to know that we're monitoring that it's included in our agenda to be able to work on that. And of course, we'll be engaged with it and seek your feedback if anything comes up on it. On the federal agenda, again, just sticking to the initiatives here, the initiatives that we would recommend pursuing, because we feel the timing is right, is to continue to more focus on forestry and timber receipts with timber policies that have been around and that you've advocated for the last, as long as I've been here anyway, for many years. But an opportunity right now to see some change for that at the federal level, so we want to be part of those conversations. And then it is time as well for the surface transportation reauthorization to be renewed. And so there will be discussions about that leveling up or delayed, depends on what Congress does. But we want to be engaged in those conversations as well and watch them because you have a major transportation project in your strategic plan that we think could be funded with some of these programs. So we're going to watch it very closely. In closing, I want to draw your attention again to the legislative policies and messaging pages in your packet. That just sort of is the guideline of expectations for how we work together during the legislative session. This document has not changed in the 13 years that I've been at Clackamas County, but we want to have you bless it or approve it so that we're all working from the same page here. We work for you in this regard. And then finally, while we are here today for the agendas, we know that the work doesn't stop there. There is plenty of advocacy opportunities, both in Salem and Washington, D.C. We will work with county administration and your offices to coordinate all of that. But this agenda-setting opportunity today gives us the opportunity to prepare for that work ahead for 2026 and be ready to serve the county. Thank you.
Commissioner Helm has her hand raised. Commissioner Helm, go ahead.
Thank you, Trent. Based on all the stuff that we've been hearing from the state, and something that concerned me yesterday in one of the breakout sessions at the Leadership Summit was that these people that come in and try to secure sites for new businesses in Oregon don't go to the counties and they don't go to the cities, they go directly to the state. And I don't know that the state and the counties are necessarily on the same page. So how do we build that relationship, so that we make sure that what the state is telling people is really what Clackamas County wants? And because we are very economic development directed right now. So who is that person or persons that I was asking Jamie Lorenzi. She was in the same session I was yesterday, and she said Laura, and I don't know that Laura Edmonds has that kind of relationship with anyone at the state level.
Thank you, Commissioner. PGA maintains those relationships with the state, but we work in close coordination with DTD and your Economic Development Department and take direction from you, the Board of County Commissioners. And so our goal, and I was actually talking with Director Johnson earlier today, is to make sure that we have a strategy around these emerging economic development initiatives and understand better what we want to accomplish. We're focusing those, if I understand correctly, based around your strategic plan, and that there are some strategic plan initiatives within or around economic development that we want to focus on. And so we'll spend some time in the next couple of months to be prepared to answer questions like that. But in a pinch, we would always come back to you if we didn't know the answer. And we'll look to you for that direction.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Schrader has her hand raised. Commissioner Schrader, go ahead.
I wish I could have been there yesterday, colleagues, but I'm so glad all of you were there. One of the organizations that we used to be more involved with was Greater Portland, Inc., which is kind of the arm of evidently trying to recruit or opportunities for us, location and growth here. I don't know if we are as involved in them or how successful they have been. I can't answer that question, but I'm wondering if that's just it'd be an opportunity to talk to Laura and Dan and revisit to see if that might be a useful contact for us. I think one of the criticisms has been that it seems to be rather Portland centric. I don't know how true that is. It seems to me in the past we've actually had better luck with our own economic development department really managing those kinds of opportunities on their own. So I just thought I'd throw that out there to maybe take a look at that and see if that might be helpful.
Commissioner Helm would like to speak.
Commissioner Helm, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Commissioner Schrader, actually that did come up, Greater Portland Inc., but the problem,
Good. Yeah.
the problem is more businesses are leaving Portland than coming into Portland. And
Right.
they have their own set of issues that we don't want to be associated with. So yes, we should have that relationship with them, maybe to help them or, you know, say maybe you could lower your taxes or be a little more business friendly.
Thank you.
But that's not the way their city council is kind of their mindset right now. But no, it did come up in conversation and they were there as well. And I will say, you're sorry you missed it, but it was pretty doom and gloom. Got to say, it was a little hard to stay positive after all the information that was given to us.
So I will try and pick all of your brains because I am very interested. As you know, both of us have been interested in economic development for so long. And so I guess my response is, if those businesses are leaving, what are we doing to actively recruit them to our county? That would be my,
right.
I hate to say it, but
yes. Yes.
If they can't do it, we can. We have a better tax structure and have a reputation for being so much more business friendly.
Well, and just one more aside, I know we're running out of time here too, but one of the things that Governor Kotek made a comment on, and correct me, Commissioner Savas, if you heard something different, is that it sounds like she's going to try to institute a preschool for all tax for the entire state.
Oh, yikes.
That was my takeaway. That's what the city of Portland has been doing, and to take care of childcare throughout the state, which is a huge problem. But that's going to be a heavy lift. So
I would agree with you. And I know we have to end. I think that I've been trying to work at the whole childcare piece from a business perspective, really trying to work with our traded sector and local businesses here to see if there are other ways of increasing capacity without raising taxes. So that remains to be seen, but that is at least one of my personal priorities. I don't think a statewide tax would fly. Particularly, I don't even think it would fly in Portland at this point. So, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Clackamas County is still a member of Greater Portland Inc., and our staff attends meetings. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and then Commissioner Savas.
Yeah,
keep it brief.
To Commissioner Helm's earlier question about the state involvement or the county's involvement or the state involving the county. The way it works is typically if we have
business
if we have someone or a business out of state is interested in, it's a partnership with the state and the county, or if we find someone we partner with. So if you remember going to Solder Lumber 2 months ago, that was with our state partners were there. So they are involved as an example, as they have, and we don't always attract them, but we try. I didn't catch the governor saying preschool for all tax, but I did definitely recall saying the governor saying that she's targeting preschool for all and got a pretty good applause from the group. The question is, how do you pay for it? And one would jump to the conclusion that indeed it has to be funded somehow. So where that money comes from, we don't know. But my one question, it's a rhetorical question. I don't expect anyone to answer it, but when we say prosperity for all or prosperity initiative, that's what it was. Yeah, prosperity initiative. I ask, prosperity for who? Because it's tough to be an optimist in these times and Seems like we're in more austere times, but I'm really wondering what that really means. When we say a prosperity initiative, is that prosperity for government? Is that prosperity for the people? I don't know. No one can answer that right now. I don't expect anyone to, but I'm okay with the agendas. Getting back to the work session question here, I'm okay with the agendas.
All right, may I have a motion?
I move to approve the state
I've-
and federal agendas.
Second.
All right, Commissioner Savas has moved to adopt the 2026 state and federal legislative agendas and messaging protocols as presented. Commissioner Schrader is second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, clerk, would you please call the poll?
Commissioner Schrader.
I have to unmute.
You are-
Aye.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Aye.
Commissioner Helm.
Aye.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Mr. Chair.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, everyone, and thank you for your patience today. This concludes our policy session.